The golden orb materialized before Arata, shimmering with destiny. His dream of becoming a slayer was finally within his grasp. But before his fingers could even graze its surface, his worthless father snatched it from the air, callously declaring it would fetch a high price. When his brother Ryu dared to object, their vile father launched a savage kick, sending him slamming into the wall with brutal force. After ditching his sons, the old man scurried off to a scumbag named Takatora, hawking the golden orb for 30 million. Years bled into one another, until one day, Arata and Ryu were glued to the news watching some guy brag about his own golden orb, one with a familiar blue ring. Their hearts stopped. There's only one golden orb for each element in all of Japan. There was no mistaking it. That orb was Arata's stolen future, and you better believe they stormed out that door to take it back. Ryu got right in Takatora's face, demanding he return his brother's property, but Takatora just played dumb, fanning the flames of Ryu's fury. Seeing he was cornered, Takatora finally relented, promising to lead them to the orb and guiding them into a dark, isolated room. The moment the door clicked shut, a cold dread washed over them. They had walked straight into a trap. A swirling magic fissure pulsed in the center of the room. Before they could even turn around, Takatora bolted the door, sealing them inside. In an instant, the fissure spat out a jet-black soul. Like the incredible brother he was, Ryu reacted instantly, shoving Arata clear of the blast and taking the full hit himself. Slowly, Ryu's body began to contort. As the darkness consumed him, he managed one last sentence to Arata. "I always believed in you," before his form twisted into a monstrous four-armed ogre. Arata's world shattered despair, threatening to swallow him whole. He blamed himself, but a spark of rage cut through the guilt. He told himself, this wasn't on him. It was on the greedy, selfish people who had ripped everything away. In that moment of pure fury, the dark orb appeared. As if summoned by his rage, he instinctively reached out, and the orb plunged into his body, merging with his soul. Searing agony tore through him as the transformation began. While screaming and desperately clinging to his sanity, a system notification flashed in his vision. It confirmed he had gained the protection of the demon realm, and with it came a deadly arsenal of new skills: the Blast Shadow Blade, the Blast Armor, and the Blast Flash. Outside, Takatora was laughing his head off, mocking the two brothers. He gloated about his master plan to murder them and absorb their power to level up, boasting about his superior status and calling them nothing but peasants. In his mind, he'd already won, completely oblivious to the demonic power Arata was currently inheriting. When the blinding pain finally faded, it hit Arata. He had absorbed the orb's immense power. He had zero time to process this revelation because the ogre that was once his brother came charging at him with a murderous roar. A massive fist came down to pulverize him, but Arata's body moved on its own, a blur of motion before the impact could even land. Arata was stunned. He had dodged the lethal blow on pure instinct, his body feeling impossibly light. He then noticed a holographic status screen shimmering in front of him, displaying his level, his stats, his new skills, and even an HP bar. Everything was happening so fast, he didn't know if this made him a slayer or something else entirely. He was still trying to wrap his head around it all when his brother charged again. Arata unleashed a desperate scream, begging his brother to fight the dark energy's influence, promising him that he was going to save him no matter what. Declaring it was his turn to be the protector, Arata stood his ground. Just as the beast's claws were about to rip him apart, it screeched to a halt. The ogre let out a roar of pure frustration, then smashed through the wall behind them and fled into the darkness. Arata stood in shock. That hesitation, that scream, it meant a part of Ryu was still in there, still fighting. But as the reality of the situation sunk in, Arata knew his brother, now seen as a monster, would be hunted down and killed by slayers on sight. If they got to Ryu first, it was over. He had to find his brother before anyone else did. Suddenly, a new magic fissure ripped open the air, and a horrifying beast crawled out from the void. It didn't waste a second, lunging forward to slash Arata and run him through. Arata vaulted backward, dodging the beast's fist as it cratered the ground where he'd been standing. Arata was still trying to process the new threat when the beast's tail whipped around and cracked against him like a thunderclap, sending him flying into the wall. Agony erupted through his entire body. This monster wasn't some low-level mob. It was the real deal. Arata knew he had to end this fight quickly so he could chase after his brother. That's when he remembered the power now coursing through his veins: the Blast Shadow Blade, the Blast Armor, and the Blast Flash. They were all still at level 1, but they were his. Realizing he now had the power of a slayer, a surge of confidence electrified him, and he stood his ground. As the beast barreled towards him again, Arata focused his new power and unleashed the Blast Flash. A shockwave of dark energy erupted, blasting the beast off its feet. Arata tried to steal a moment to breathe, but the creature was already scrambling up, more enraged than before. It charged, and before Arata could react, he was slammed against the wall, his consciousness fading. The irony was sickening. He'd finally gained the power he'd craved his whole life, only to be killed just moments after receiving it. He's left wondering if this is it, if he's going to die a total nobody without ever managing to save his brother. Just as the creature lunges for the final blow, Arata's body erupts in a dark purple aura, plunging him into the flow state. His eyes snap open, and they blaze with the intensity of a starving vampire. Out of the blue, a volley of projectiles slams into the beast, making it shriek in agony. Arata blacks out, and when his vision returns, he sees the monster's corpse sprawled out before him, riddled with unfamiliar weapons. The sight leaves him completely stunned. As he tries to process whether he actually defeated the beast, totally clueless about what just happened, the system chimes in. He's officially reached level 3. Arata connects the dots. Beating that thing must have caused him to level up, which means his stats just got a serious glow up. But he shoves aside any thoughts of getting stronger. The only mission that matters now is finding his brother. He hauls himself to his feet, stumbling onto the wrecked street. The image of Takatora flashes in his mind, and a fire of pure rage ignites within him. He makes a silent vow that dude will never be forgiven for what he's done. Abruptly, the last of his strength vanishes and he collapses right there on the pavement. Meanwhile, Takatora has slithered back to the room, expecting to confirm the brothers' deaths, but instead finds a blown-out wall and utter devastation. Takatora's eyes go wide with disbelief. There is absolutely no way he could have predicted that the brothers would have the power to break out of his trap. Sometime later, Arata is jolted awake from a dream filled with memories of his brother. He scans his surroundings, realizing he's in a strange, clinical-looking room. It turns out to be an infirmary. The last thing he can recall is storming the Goto building and clashing with a monster. Then the horrifying truth hits him like a ton of bricks. His brother was that beast, and he's the only one who can save him. Arata throws off the covers to leave, but a nurse materializes in the doorway, holding a tray of medical supplies. She insists he needs to stay in bed. Arata fumbles for words, completely caught off guard, as the nurse explains they received a call about him collapsing on the roadside. She then gestures to the brutal injuries he sustained during his fight. He had completely blanked on the damage, but her words brought the whole ordeal rushing back. Arata finally asks the nurse where he is, and the woman calmly replies that he's in a Slayer relief station. The nurse mentions this is nothing new to her. Rookie Slayers often bite off more than they can chew in their first battle and end up in a hospital bed. Arata is floored to hear he's in a relief station, and his mind races trying to figure out who could have possibly brought him here. The nurse then advises Arata to join a guild and get an official Slayer badge. She's about to launch into a speech about all the perks that come with guild membership, but Arata cuts her off, his voice firm, insisting there's somewhere he absolutely has to be. The nurse immediately goes into full-on mom mode, scolding him that he can't just go running around when he needs to be recovering. Seeing no other choice, Arata sinks back onto the bed, and the nurse leaves, telling him to wait for her return. The very second she's gone, Arata is out of that bed and creeping toward the door. As he reaches it, he overhears some guys discussing the magic beast that appeared near the Goto building. Arata knows instantly they're talking about his brother. He also catches them mention that an unidentified slayer is with the beast. The men agree it's going to be a massive problem for them to contain the creature if it manages to slip into a magic fissure. The grim reality sets in. The guild is actively hunting his brother, and it won't be long before they track him down and put him down for good. Arata knows he has to find his brother, and he has to do it now. The nurse returns to the room, only to find it empty with the window hanging wide open. Arata is already tearing through the streets, consumed with the fear that his brother is about to be permanently erased. He recalls the men talking about a magic fissure, and it clicks: his brother might be trapped inside one. With this new lead, Arata resolves to check out every single magic fissure in the vicinity. As if on cue, a citywide alert buzzes on his phone, warning that a magic fissure has just materialized in the Asagi area, and all civilians should evacuate immediately. The timing is too suspicious to be a coincidence, so Arata sprints toward it. He arrives at the location of the crack, and sees that it's a low-level bronze rank fissure. He also notices a containment barrier has been erected around it, which means someone from the association has already been here, but he can't sense any slayers nearby yet. Since this is his first time ever going into a magic fissure, he's understandably nervous and a little freaked out, but he pushes past the fear, reminding himself that this is all to save his brother. The moment he steps through the shimmering portal, the system registers that someone is attempting to clear the fissure. Arata is absolutely blown away by the sight on the other side. He's standing in what looks like a vast, endless desert, a world completely alien from the city he just left. With no idea where his brother could possibly be, he concludes that his only option is to venture deeper. Just then, a new mission notification flashes before his eyes. To clear the fissure, he must defeat the boss lurking within. He deduces his target must be lurking in the absolute deepest heart of the fissure, but he knows a gauntlet of other beasts stands in his way, and for a split second, a chilling question echoes in his mind. Is he strong enough? Out of the gloom, a level 3 beast materializes. He vaguely recalls downing one just yesterday, but the memory is hazy, unreliable. Regardless, there's no path but forward. He taps into his skill list and the shadow blade solidifies in his grip. A flash of relief hits Arata as the weapon forms. The beast charges a blur of teeth and claws, but he slams the shadow sword up, deflecting the monster's savage bite. Arata's muscles scream as he's locked in a brutal stalemate, teeth grinding, as he summons every scrap of strength he possesses. The creature's raw power shoves him backward, sending him skidding across the cavern floor. It's a harsh awakening. This is what it truly means to fight a monster. All that training with his brother, it feels like a joke now, utterly useless against this kind of primal fury. Shaking off the doubt, he recomposes and explodes in a flash of movement, blitzing the beast and reducing it to nothing but pieces. A notification screen immediately flares to life. He's skyrocketed from level 3 straight to level 5. Before he can even process it, an entire pack of monsters materializes before him. A wave of pure dread washes over him. This is impossible. A bronze-rank dungeon should never be able to spawn this many enemies. Arata's mind races, grappling with the terrifying possibility of facing them all at once. But instead of letting fear paralyze him, Arata braces himself, readying his stance for the impending onslaught. He clings to a sliver of hope. If he can just reactivate that broken skill from the day before, he might actually have a fighting chance. The moment the horde stampedes toward him, Arata realizes he's totally screwed. He has no clue how to even use the overpowered skill. Just as he's about to be torn to shreds, a massive wave of fire erupts from nowhere, completely engulfing the monsters. Arata is in total shock when a voice from behind him cuts through the air, demanding to know what kind of skill he just used. But he can't even answer. His brain is still short-circuiting from the insane display of firepower he just witnessed. The unknown dude is staring him down like he's a major threat. And then he reveals he got a tip from the association about an unidentified slayer. Judging by the carnage, he's got his man. Arata sizes up the newcomer and instantly knows this guy is a golden slayer, and he wields the fire attribute. The man introduces himself as Ryo Kuji, a key member of the Lion Flame Guild. He's not alone, flanked by two other slayers, Shumaki Shima and Hayato Akagi, both silver-ranked. Arata's mind spins. Why is one of the legendary 5 great kings here? Their conversation is cut short by a few straggling beasts. With a look of utter annoyance, Ryo snaps his fingers, and the monsters disintegrate into flaming dust, leaving an inferno swirling in his wake. It's a complete power flex just to show off for our MC. The move leaves Arata speechless, witnessing the overwhelming power of a golden slayer up close. For the very first time, Ryo strolls toward him, commenting on the ridiculously high number of monsters for such a low-rank fisher. Then his gaze fixes on Arata's shadow sword, and he asks flat out, "What's your skill?" The question hits Arata hard because he's been desperately wondering the exact same thing. He only knows that his ability doesn't belong to any of the 5 main attributes. He has no idea what it is. This just makes Ryo even more intrigued. "You're a weirdo," Ryo states, wielding a weird-ass skill. His face turns dead serious. Ryo leans in, demanding, "What are you really doing down here?" Arata knows he can't possibly admit he's searching for his brother. They'd just slap a subjugation order on him too. No chance. So Arata decides to just ignore the question entirely. He turns his back, throws a quick thanks for the help over his shoulder, and starts to walk away. See, awakening orbs are supposed to be like a prayer resonating with a user's inner power to grant them the attribute they're closest to. It's basic knowledge, but Ryo sees absolutely no trace of that system in Arata. He calls out, stopping him cold. "I've figured it out," Ryo declares. "You're the irregular slayer they're all talking about." Arata whirls around to argue, shot back, "I don't know what you mean by irregular slayer. I need to go." But Ryo blocks his path. "Sorry, pal. The association ordered me to bring you in for questioning. Don't take it personally." Ryo smirks before launching himself forward, his fist engulfed in a raging inferno. Just as the fiery explosion is about to connect, Arata instinctively throws his sword up to shield his head. He's left completely stunned when his shadow blade is instantly vaporized by Ryo's insane firepower. Even Ryo looks shocked that the sword just vanished into thin air. Arata desperately leaps back to create some space. But Ryo isn't finished. "Don't interfere," he barks at his subordinates, a wild grin spreading across his face. "This is actually starting to be fun." The 2 slayers nod, but you can see the fear in their eyes. They know they'll be reduced to ash if Ryo actually gets serious in this fight. Without hesitation, Ryo unleashes a fresh barrage of fireballs aimed right at Arata. Arata realizes he is in serious life-threatening danger and dives behind a huge rock to shield himself from the fiery impacts. As the inferno dies down, a smug grin spreads across Ryo's face, and he tells Arata to just give up unless he wants to be turned into a pile of dust. Ducking behind a massive rock, it hits Arata that he'll never lay eyes on his brother again if this guy manages to capture him. In a flash, Ryo launches himself skyward and unleashes a devastating heat-seeking fireball straight for Arata's hiding spot. Realizing that cover is useless, Arata dives out of the way, dodging the explosive impact by a razor-thin margin. Ryo lands with total confidence, sneering that running and hiding is a dead-end strategy. While Ryo is just laughing his head off and dissing him, Arata frantically scrolls through his skill list, desperately looking for an ace up his sleeve. Facing off against this absolute maniac who's basically a real-life Fire Lord Ozai Arata, lands on a skill he's betting will be clutch. Arata forces himself to his feet, and from his new stance, Rio feels a shift in the air around him. Arata extends his hands forward. Rio just scoffs, letting him know that whatever little trick he's planning is completely pointless. Like it's nothing, Rio unleashes another volley of fireballs. The moment the fireballs are about to slam into him, Arata's power flares to life, and he literally eats the flames. The backlash is insane, but he stays on his feet. Right then and there, Rio finally gets it. This kid is not just some scrub. Still, Rio flexes, showing off an even more terrifying level of firepower, and gives him one last chance to surrender before he gets erased. In response, Arata's shadow sword extends, growing longer and sharper as he declares that his brother is waiting and getting caught is not an option. Hearing the word brother hits a nerve with Rio, shattering his focus for a split second. That's all the opening Arata needs to close the distance. By the time Rio snaps out of his daze, Arata is already a blur in the air, his blade screaming down towards him. With barely a millisecond to spare, Rio throws up his arm, blocking the strike with his armored gauntlet. He digs his heels in, holding his position. But he can feel it. Something about Arata has fundamentally changed. After a tense moment, Arata leaps back, telling Rio he has to go. Rio is completely thrown by this, but then he says something wild, that if Arata is serious about protecting someone, he'll have to be the one to take down the boss. Arata is floored, realizing that Rio is for some reason actually talking to him, trying to help. Rio keeps going, telling Arata that he's got to grind his levels faster and quit being so reckless, or he's just going to burn himself out for good. A genuine smile breaks out on Arata's face as he thanks Rio for the advice before bolting. Rio just watches him go, a proud, almost fatherly grin on his face. His goons rush over reporting that they've cleared out all the beasts in the surrounding area, but Rio just says that Arata is one hell of a fiery kid. The two lackeys are shook when they see their boss is actually smiling, a clear sign he's in an unexpectedly good mood. Meanwhile, over at the Navy Guild, a report comes in about another magic fissure tearing open. Guildmaster immediately dispatches one of her silver slayers, a girl named Aoi Ichika, to handle the new breach. And unlike pretty much everyone else, Ichika looks absolutely stoked to jump into a fight. You can see the sheer excitement plastered all over her face. A bit later, Arata gets booted from the fissure after someone else defeated the boss, and he instantly knew it had to be Rio. Even before the instance closed, Arata had desperately searched around, but there wasn't a single trace of his brother anywhere. Later, Arata catches a news broadcast warning everyone to report any sightings of the magic beast. Seeing this, Arata figures he can't count on anyone else for help. No, he's got to handle everything all on his own. Right on cue, an alert pops up on his screen. Another magic fissure is materializing in District 4. As always, every phone in the vicinity buzzes with an evacuation notice. Since the district is super close to his current location, Arata knows he has to check it out. He sprints toward the hot zone, praying he gets there before any other slayers. He arrives to find it's a bronze-ranked fissure. Since the dungeon hasn't been cleared yet, a spark of hope ignites in Arata. Maybe his brother is inside this one. But just as he's about to enter, a couple of dudes from the Navy Guild, Hanamita and Ishinari, step in his way, telling him the area is off-limits. The situation gets way more hostile when they spot Arata's missing badge. They immediately start running their mouths, clowning on him for being some lowbie who couldn't even get into a guild. They call him a normal slayer, and in this world, a normal slayer is rock bottom, while a gold-ranked slayer is the absolute peak. Arata is just baffled by the audacity of these two. Like, who even are these guys? They won't shut up, bragging that their master is the one who's going to clear this fissure. And because of that, they tell Arata nobody else gets to go in, especially not some trash like him. Arata, totally confused by their attitude, tells them he has a legit reason why he needs to get inside that fissure and fast. The two guys basically tell Arata they don't give a damn about his reasons, because there's zero chance they're letting him pass. Then they cross a line, launching a surprise attack on him. Arata's reflexes kick in, and he dodges just before getting hit. He keeps it passive, telling them again that he's in a serious hurry. But Arata finally decides he's going to teach them some respect, when he sees they have no intention of backing down. His shadow blade materializes in his hand as he lunges toward the two of them, ready to teach them what real pain felt like. But just as he's about to move, he realizes his feet are cemented in place. He glances down, and sees he's been caught in a mud trap laid by the two clowns. Before he can process it, the ground starts swallowing him whole, and the horrifying truth hits him. It's a bottomless pit. If he can't break free, he's dead. Paralyzed Arata can only glare at the two punks, completely helpless. Suddenly, a voice cuts through the tension from behind, demanding to know what they're doing to Arata. They whip around, and standing there is none other than Aoi Ichika. The two goons are completely shook. She wasn't supposed to be anywhere near here. Aoi wastes zero time on them and focuses on Arata. Channeling her power, she summons a massive wave of water that erupts from the ground, yanking him free from the sludge. Aoi then turns on the bullies, asking why in the world slayers are throwing down against each other, still gasping for air. Arata explains that Hanamida and Ishinari are gatekeeping the fissure, refusing to let him inside. Aoi's heard rumors about slayers, who illegally jump into fissures before they've been properly scouted all, so they can hog the glory and the rewards. And one look at these two tells her everything she needs to know. They quickly realize Aoi is a major problem for their little operation, and they decide they have to take her out. They're feeling cocky, figuring they can easily overwhelm her since she's just a support class. Without a shred of hesitation, they launch a barrage of ice shards right at her, but Aoi instantly throws up a shimmering barrier, shielding both herself and Arata. After effortlessly deflecting their attack, Aoi looks at Arata and tells him to handle the two of them while she provides backup. Arata is floored. He's literally never been in a real fight before in his life, but with their backs against the wall, what choice do they have? He agrees to do it. Aoi thanks him for trusting her and immediately activates one of her skills, Merlin Schnell. A surge of energy instantly flows through Arata, and he can feel the buff's incredible effect as his entire body feels weightless, completely different from just moments ago. Aoi assures him that this fight is about to become a cakewalk, giving him the green light to go absolutely ham on the delinquents while she juices him up with her skills. Arata grins and explodes toward the duo at a blinding speed. They're completely stunned by his sudden burst of power, because Arata is now unbelievably fast. Before they can even blink, Arata claps them with his Slayer Blade. With just one solid hit, he drops them both. Arata feels absolutely no recoil from the impact. Even after that insane move, when he pulls up his stats, his jaw hits the floor, all his numbers have skyrocketed. Aoi rushes over yelling, asking if he actually cut the two of them down, but Arata quickly clarifies that he only hit them with the flat of his blade. Aoi breathes a sigh of relief, but she's seriously ticked off that members of her own guild are out here, making a complete fool of themselves. That's when Arata notices the Water Slayer emblem on her chest and puts it together, that she's also from Takatora's guild. After finally introducing themselves, Aoi has to admit that Arata is surprisingly strong. Before their conversation can continue, they hear the two bullies scrambling to their feet and making a run for it. As they flee, they yell out their master's name, and it turns out to be Takatora. That name immediately grabs Arata's full attention. And Aoi's interest is piqued as well. She declares her plan to report Takatora's shady, behind-the-scenes schemes to the guildmaster Rei. Now that the trash is gone, Aoi reminds Arata that they still have a fissure to clear. Arata is a bit reluctant, but Aoi informs him that other guild members will be arriving soon. Until then, though, she can fight right alongside him. Turns out she has high-level authorization to clear this fissure herself. Arata is genuinely bewildered when he hears this. Aoi suggests they team up, explaining that recent reports show that even lower-rank fissures have been acting up with strange, unpredictable threats. Besides, Aoi is a support slayer, and Arata remembers just how broken her earlier buff felt. This is his chance to properly thank the girl who saved him, and Aoi asks him one more time if he's willing to tackle the fissure with her. An offer this good is impossible to refuse, so Arata agrees on the spot. Hyped for their newfound partnership, the two of them charge into the fissure, ready to conquer it. The moment they step inside, Arata is stunned. This place is nothing like the last fissure. It's a massive, eerie cave with ominous shadows everywhere. Aoi explains that the interior of a fissure is basically its own pocket dimension, which is exactly why you never truly know what kind of world you're about to step into. Aoi warns that they should proceed with caution, and Arata completely agrees. As they venture deeper, Arata realizes the cavern is dead silent. There's no sign of a single magic beast, and on top of that, his older brother is nowhere in sight. Arata wasn't naive enough to think he'd find his brother easily, but since he's been blessed with the incredible opportunity to run a fissure with a silver-ranked slayer, he plans to learn how to actually fight, while also grinding some serious levels. A moment later, they're ambushed by a level 5 goblin that looks absolutely ravenous, like it wants to use their blood for a morning smoothie. Arata flashes back to the day before, when he almost got taken out by a single goblin, even though they are considered the absolute weakest of all magic beasts. This time, without an ounce of hesitation, Arata lunges for the goblin, and cleanly separates its head from its shoulders. He's still got a smirk on his face from the easy takedown, when an entire legion of them materializes from the shadows. A tidal wave of green skin and snarling teeth floods his vision, and for a terrifying second, Arata's confidence shatters. Can he really take on this many? But then a familiar golden aura envelops him, as Aoi's buff kicks in, sending his stats surging through the roof. He glances back to see Aoi's confident smirk. "Go show him what you're made of," she says. That's all the permission Arata needs. He becomes a whirlwind of steel, carving through the goblin horde without a shred of mercy. With the last one down, a notification pops. Level 5 becomes level 6. "Nice work," Aoi chirps. "With me backing you up, these bronze rank chumps are a total cakewalk." He can feel it too, a raw power coursing through his veins. "I've never felt this strong," he admits, and Aoi just puffs out her chest. They don't call me the linchpin of rear support for nothing, she brags. But in that moment of triumph, a chilling presence materializes right behind them. Arata's eyes go wide. Aoi, look out. A lone goblin lunges its rusted blade aimed right for her back, but Aoi's shield shimmers into existence, deflecting the blow with a deafening clang. Her smile is gone, replaced by a look of pure fury. In a flash of light, she unleashes a devastating blast that vaporizes the goblin on the spot. Arata is completely stunned. The speed, the flawless execution, she chained multiple skills together in a split second. This wasn't just talent. This was pure, battle-hardened experience. She's not just fast. She's a one-woman support system. He's totally lost in awe when her voice snaps him out of it. Hey, Daydreamer, we gotta move. In that instant, Aoi isn't just a party member anymore. She's his new idol. He vows to himself that he'll grind, get stronger, and one day reach her level. Arata blurts out his new goal of being strong enough to shield others, just the way she does. Aoi's expression softens into a genuine smile, telling him that it's a worthy ambition. However, she warns him that he's got to survive this, first pointing out the horde of goblins that has now trapped them. This is when Arata finally sees it. They're completely surrounded. An entire goblin army has materialized from the shadows. His heart hammers in his chest, but he sees that Aoi is as cool as a cucumber. Just like clockwork, that golden light washes over him again. Time for round 2, Aoi says, her voice steady. Take them all down. Arata appreciates the massive boost he gets from her support, a new fire of determination igniting within him. He lunges at the nearest goblins, hacking and slashing, a blur of motion and steel. Limbs fly, goblins fall, and with every kill, his power skyrockets. When the dust settles, not a single goblin is left standing. Then the system alert chimes. His jaw drops. He hasn't just leveled up, he's vaulted from level 6 all the way to level 10. Arata is speechless, but as a reward for hitting double digits, he unlocks a brand new skill, Blast Cannon. But his celebration is cut brutally short, as another wave of monsters appears on the horizon. This time the force is so massive that it sends a shiver down even Aoi's spine. Our only shot is a preemptive strike, Aoi says, her voice tight with tension. Aoi tells Arata his ability is strange, but she needs to know if he has a ranged attack, because if he doesn't, they're about to be completely buried. A ranged attack. The words echo in his head, then it clicks. His new skill, the Blast Cannon. This is what it was made for. Without a second thought, Arata activates the skill, aiming into the sea of goblins. A massive beam of pure magical energy erupts from his palm, tearing a hole straight through the goblin front lines. But Arata isn't done. He fires again. And again. By the time the smoke clears, the entire goblin army has been completely annihilated. Aoi slowly turns to him, a slow, impressed smile spreading across her face. Arata knows he's finally done something right, actually managing to live up to her insane standards. She suggests they push on to the boss room, and this time Arata feels ready for anything. Just then, another notification confirms his new status, level 12. Moments later, they find themselves standing before a massive dark opening. The boss is in there. Aoi whispers her hand on her weapon. Stay sharp. His nerves are shot. This is his first ever boss fight, but one look at Aoi and a new resolve hardens within him. He has to protect the girl beside him. Inside, enthroned in the center of the chamber, sits their target, a hulking level 15 ogre. The monster heaves itself to its feet and growls something in a guttural language he can't understand. And then, without any warning, the magic beast unleashes a crackling bolt of lightning from its massive staff. I've got this, Aoi shouts, stepping in front of him. Using one of her abilities, she throws up a shimmering barrier to block the blast, but the sheer force of the impact sends her flying to the ground. Aoi hits the dirt, hard stunned. This thing is supposed to be bronze. Rank, she gasps. The boss is already charging up another lightning blast. We'll never get near it if it just spams ranged attacks like that, Aoi yells. Aoi reveals her strategy. She'll draw its fire while he dives in for a counterattack. Arata sees her shield cracking under the pressure, and something inside him snaps. He's sick and tired of always being the one who needs protection. Forget the plan. While the ogre focuses its magic on Aoi, Arata breaks from cover, sprinting straight at the beast. Once he's in the perfect spot, he aims and unleashes his blast cannon at point-blank range. The explosion shatters the ogre's staff, instantly neutralizing its biggest threat. Aoi is totally hyped that Arata nailed it, but the ogre is beyond furious and hurls the jagged remains of its weapon directly at him. The projectile comes out of nowhere, catching Arata completely off guard. He desperately tries to dodge, but in that split second he knows he's not going to make it. Before he can even flinch, the twisted metal shreds right through his torso. Blood sprays from Arata's mouth as he slams into the ground. Aoi doesn't waste a single second. Before scrambling to his side, she throws up a protective barrier around them and immediately starts channeling her healing magic into Arata. In just a few moments, the gaping wound on his body knits itself shut. Arata lets out a ragged cough, finally managing to push himself to a sitting position. Aoi explains it was just battlefield first aid and quickly asks if he's still mobile. Arata thanks her for the clutch save. and insists he's still good to fight. But their relief was short-lived as the enraged ogre barrels towards them once again. Arata's mind is blown. A creature that massive has no business moving so fast, and it's heading straight for them. The ogre swings a massive fist, aiming to flatten them into a paste, but Aoi's barrier miraculously holds against the devastating impact. She's straining under the immense force, and Arata realizes they are absolutely screwed if they don't end this thing like right now. His eyes scan the beast, and then he spots it, a tiny, unprotected gap in the armor, right at the ogre's neck. That's the weak spot. That's how they win this. Just like before, Aoi runs interference, drawing the monster's aggro, while Arata maneuvers to line up the perfect shot. This time, however, the beast is onto him. It clocks his plan, and immediately switches its focus from Aoi. It swings a brutal punch at Arata, but just as the blow is about to connect, he sees his chance, a wide-open shot at the ogre's throat. He unleashes his cannon point-blank. The blast sends the monster staggering to its knees, and Aoi screams at Arata, telling him to finish it now. Arata summons his shadow blade, a new fire in his eyes. He is done being the one who needs saving, but before he can deliver the final blow, Aoi isn't just watching from the sidelines. She hits him with a serious power buff. A grin flashes across Arata's face as he feels the energy surge through him. He charges the ogre and launches himself into the air, channeling every ounce of his newfound strength into the swing. The sheer force of the blow decapitates the ogre, leaving its massive body headless. A fountain of blood erupts as the monster finally falls. Staring up at the cave ceiling, Arata gets that beautiful notification he has leveled up. Once more, Aoi is beaming as she runs over, hand raised for a high five. Arata, both shocked and thrilled, slaps her hand in return, but with the boss defeated, the entire dungeon starts to collapse around them. The two of them make a mad dash for the exit, trying not to get buried alive. They barely manage to escape the fissure, just before it completely dematerializes. He didn't find his brother, Arata thinks, but he definitely got a massive power-up. He's mulling this over when his legs finally give out and he collapses from pure exhaustion. Aoi sees just how wrecked he really is, and grabs his arm, telling him to come with her. Arata groans, thinking he's being hauled off to the infirmary again, but she doesn't take him there. Instead, Aoi drags him all the way to the Navy Guild headquarters. She parks him in a waiting room and tosses him a change of clothes. She then dips out, saying she has to go file a report first. 15 minutes tick by, and Arata starts to wonder what the holdup is. He decides to peek his head out to see what's going on, and just as he steps into the hall, a girl sprinting down the corridor trips and nearly faceplants right in front of him. Arata catches her just in time. He's about to strike up a conversation when a sudden horrifying thought hits him. Arata immediately aborts any potential riz he was about to lay down, and just bolts for the entrance. It's only after he's running that it truly clicks. The girl he just saved is the guildmaster of the Navy Guild, and there is no way he can afford to get questioned by her. Ray, meanwhile, is just standing there, totally confused, wondering why that guy just booked it. She just shrugs it off and continues to the conference room where Aoi is waiting. Ray gives her a warm welcome back, but Aoi is in no mood for pleasantries. She cuts right to the chase, telling her they need to talk. She immediately starts unloading all her frustrations about what Takatora has been plotting behind their backs. Ray has to get her to chill out as Aoi just keeps ranting. Finally, Aoi takes a breath and breaks down the whole situation for her. Aoi explains that Takatora has been manipulating the fissures for his own personal gain. Ray is completely stunned by this revelation, and decides then and there that she's going to handle him personally. Still, her mind drifts back to Arata, the mysterious guy she literally just ran into. The next day, Arata is breathing a sigh of relief, thinking he dodged a major bullet with Ray, while just praying he didn't end up on her radar. He's cutting through an alley when he spots a group of slayers, getting absolutely wrecked by a magic beast, while desperately trying to shield a little kid. The monster is a gnarly two-headed beast that breathes fire, but without a moment's hesitation, Arata becomes a blur, launching himself straight at the creature. He closes the distance in an instant, and with a single powerful punch crackling with shadow energy, he completely shatters the beast's fire blast. The slayer, who was shielding the kid, looks on in shock, is absolutely floored by this display of raw power, his mind racing, wondering if this guy is actually a slayer. Arata isn't about to let a prime farming opportunity slip by, and he summons his immense shadow sword. The slayer's eyes go wide. He's never seen an ability like that in his life. Arata plants himself between the beast and the kids he's shielding. The monster lunges, a blur of teeth and claws, but he holds a flawless thrusting stance, and with a single perfect strike, he completely obliterates the horrifying creature. What he doesn't know is that he's being scouted from the shadows by a slayer who's suddenly very, very interested in him. Back at the Japan Slayers Association headquarters, the five kings themselves have convened for a meeting. We're talking the top brass Jinosuke Dojo from the Seiwa Guild, Ryokuji from the Lion Flame Guild, Rei Isaki from the Navy Guild, Takuto Nagihara of the Jade Sky Guild, and Shion Inamori, representing the Kaizen Guild. Dojo kicks things off, zeroing in on the first item on their docket, the absolutely insane number of fissures that have been popping up all over the country. Rio chimes in, confirming a bronze-rank fissure spiraled out of control not long ago, unleashing a horde of magic beasts. Ray adds that they're also seeing cases where bosses are spawning in the wrong fissures, and they're way stronger than the designated rank. Rio just scoffs, not caring if they're abnormal anomalies. He sees it as just another intense training day for his slayers. A smirk plays on Takuto's lips as he listens to Rio's take, calling him out for being way too casual about the whole situation. That hits a nerve. Rio explodes to his feet, absolutely fuming at Takuto. Rio boasts that his guild has pulled more weight than Takuto's, but Takuto just chills, completely unfazed by the outburst, until Rio finally slumps back into his chair. Since this crisis has only been happening recently, Ray questions what could possibly be the cause. Dojo theorizes that something is fundamentally shifting on the magic beast's side, triggering these unusual spikes in fissure appearances. But he assures his comrades that whatever this change is, it's a breadcrumb trail that will lead them to the truth. He orders them to report even the smallest anomaly directly to him, and they all confirm they understand. With that settled, Dojo switches gears to the mysterious unregistered slayer who's been hopping from one fissure to another like a ghost. Dojo admits no one has a clue what his motives are, but he has a gut feeling that the changes aren't just happening to the monsters, but to the slayers as well. Ray immediately speaks up, telling them a guy matching that description just showed up at her guild. She describes his skill set as something completely alien, totally different from any known technique. But before Ray could even get a word in with him, he vanished into thin air. Meanwhile, Takuto, who was spying on that very slayer from a rooftop, decides to keep that little tidbit to himself. Ray then speculates to her colleagues that maybe this rogue slayer knows his skills are one of a kind, which is why he feels like he doesn't fit in with any of the established guilds. Just as Ray floats this theory, Takuto cuts in with a wild accusation suggesting the possibility that Arata is actually a magic beast in disguise. Rio instantly shuts that down, telling him to stop spitting garbage and coming to Arata's defense. Ray is stunned to hear Rio has actually met the guy, and at this point Rio drops the act. He confirms the kid is insanely powerful, but there's zero chance he's a monster. Takuto just bursts out laughing at this, admitting he was just trying to get a rise out of them. Dojo then informs the group that the order to apprehend Arata is strictly optional, since they have no real evidence to issue a warrant for his arrest just yet. Shion, who's been silent this whole time, finally speaks. She tells them that if Arata isn't ready to come forward, then there's no point in obsessing over him. Having delivered her one and only take for the meeting, Shion gets up to leave. In a total power move, she claims she has a tea meeting to get to. As she reaches the door, she spots a tiny camera tucked away near the ceiling. She has no idea what it is, but she and the rest of the kings are clueless. The Takatora is the one on the other side watching their every move through the camera he secretly planted in the room. From what he's just overheard, Takatora realizes Arata is a huge deal to the five kings, and a plan begins to form if he captures the kid. His own stock within the association would skyrocket. Plus, it would end all this chaos. He'd be killing two birds with one stone. He knows he needs solid intel if he's going to successfully hunt down this rogue. Based on the information he has, he deduces that Arata has somehow gained the unique skill of light while his brother has been twisted into a magic beast. Connecting these two dots, Takatora figures out exactly where Arata is going to show up next. He rises from his chair, deciding he needs to handle Arata personally before this whole thing blows up. Later, Arata sees a crowd of people sprinting away from a magic fissure, but he does the opposite. He sprints toward it. Just as he's about to enter the breach, he's cut off by Takatora. Decked out in full Slayer armor and wearing the most punchable smirk imaginable, Takatora starts mocking Arata for desperately clinging to life before informing him that he's here to drag him back to the association. He tells Arata to come along quietly, but Arata just roars back, "Don't get in my way." Takatora just scoffs at his defiance. With a cruel smirk, Takatora mocks Arata about his rampaging beast-transformed brother, casually mentioning he's going to put him down. A blind rage consumes Arata, who unleashes a devastating blast from his burst cannon directly at Takatora. The Golden Slayer doesn't even flinch. As the torrent of energy screams toward him, he effortlessly devours Arata's attack with a single dismissive shot, leaving Arata completely stunned. But quitting isn't in his vocabulary. Arata summons his Shadow Blade and lunges a blur of motion aimed straight for Takatora. It's useless. He's hopelessly outmatched. Takatora fires off a long-range blast, aiming to swallow Arata whole. Arata throws his sword up in a desperate block, but the raw power of the attack is overwhelming, shattering his defense and slamming him into the ground. Takatora looms over him, sneering that Arata's power is only special because it's new, not because it's strong. Arata painfully drags himself up his mind, racing, trying to figure out what went wrong. He'd upgraded both his burst cannon and his blazing Shadow Blade. A chilling thought creeps in. Maybe he just can't beat a Golden Slayer no matter what. Yet even facing absolute defeat, Arata forces himself back onto his feet. Takatora's eyes widen slightly, surprised the kid still has any fight left in him. That's when Arata unleashes a new skill, Soot Darkness. A thick black smoke instantly blankets the area. Takatora remains rooted to the spot, convinced Arata is just creating a pathetic little smokescreen. He scoffs, wondering what the plan is, when suddenly a shadow blade materializes out of the murk, aimed right for his throat. He barely deflects it, his powers flaring to life as he angrily swats away a barrage of other phantom attacks slicing through the smoke. As the smoke thins, he sees Arata charging head-on. Arata's blade nearly finds its mark, a desperate final lunge. But Takatora blocks it with ease. "It's over for you," Arata grits out. Takatora just laughs, telling him this is only the beginning. He's destined to keep growing, to become one of the 5 kings. He lays out his grand ambition to seize the Navy Guild and consolidate total control over the entire association. Arata fires back, vowing he'll never let that happen, spitting that a monster like Takatora is completely unfit to be one of the 5 kings. With a flick of his wrist, Takatora sends Arata flying, telling him to learn his place, down with the rest of the lowlifes. A chilling ice blade materializes in Takatora's hand as he reveals his plan to offer Arata up as a sacrifice. He taunts Arata, saying his pathetic sword could never compare, but Arata, racked with pain, drops a bombshell, screaming that the very orb powering Takatora's weapon was stolen from him. Arata roars that his brother would still be human if Takatora hadn't ripped that orb away. An inferno of dark aura explodes from Arata's body as he remembers that every single tragedy, every bit of his pain traces back to this one man. He launches himself at Takatora in a blind fury. He swings wildly, but Takatora parries the blow. He can feel it, though Arata's power has spiked again, but it's still not enough. With a powerful shove, Takatora knocks him back, ordering him to just give up. To end this, Takatora reveals his true terrifying power, unleashing a devastating skill, the Ice Emperor's Prison. The temperature plummets, and the entire area flash freezes. Arata is instantly encased in jagged ice, completely immobilized. With his movements sealed, Takatora summons a storm of massive icicles to finish the job. With absolutely no way to escape, the attack hits Arata full force, and his world goes black. Takatora scoffs, mocking him for passing out from an attack that wasn't even his full power. He levels his sword at Arata's throat, ready to end it, so he can spin whatever story he wants to the association. But just as he's about to strike, a blast of ice slams into him, stopping him cold. The shock is written all over his face. He turns and sees Rei and Aoi, their expressions dripping with disgust. Rei's voice is ice, noting how much trouble he's been stirring up lately. She demands to know why he's picking a fight in broad daylight in the middle of the city. Takatora is stunned to see the guildmaster. She informs him she's been watching the whole time. Rei sees the pattern now. Takatora always acts like a lawless thug the second she's not around. He tries to defend himself, claiming Arata is an irregular, but Rei cuts him off, stating that gives him zero right to beat the kid half to death. Aoi rushes to Arata's side to help him. In his hazy, fading consciousness, Arata recognizes Rei from the guild. Aoi activates her healing skill, bathing him in a gentle light. Arata's eyes flutter open to see Aoi leaning over him, a look of pure surprise on his face. He tries to get up, but Aoi gently pushes him back down, warning him that his wounds will just tear open again. Arata's gaze finds Takatora, and pure hatred fuels his voice as he screams that he'll never forgive him. The outburst drains the last of his strength, and he collapses unconscious again. Takatora warns the girls they'll be defying the entire association if they choose to protect and heal Arata. Rei coolly informs Takatora that no official arrest warrant for Arata has been issued, and since that's the case, she's officially requesting to place him under the Navy Guild's direct surveillance. Takatora starts to object, but Rei shuts him down, making it clear that she and Aoi are taking full responsibility for Arata from now on. Takatora can only seethe, reminding Rei that he's a Golden Slayer too. Later, Rei corners him, demanding to know what he meant, and Takatora lays out his big idea: they should team up and expand the guild's reach. He even plans to bankroll the whole operation with his Godo Corporation. But Rei shuts him down, cold, drawing a line in the sand and telling him to take a step back. Takatora is forced to retreat, but not before smugly telling Rei she'll come crawling back once she sees what a powerhouse he really is. Absolutely repulsed by his presence, Rei dismisses him and orders Aoi to get Arata to the infirmary, promising she'll be right behind them. A short while later, Arata's eyes flutter open. He's in the Navy Guild's medical bay. He tries to push himself up, but Aoi is already there, gently stopping him. She tells him they have a lot to talk about. Then a shadow of worry crosses her face. Rei still hasn't shown up, and Aoi has a seriously bad feeling about it. She bolts from the room, ordering Arata to stay put, and not even think about pulling another disappearing act. Aoi sprints down the corridor and finds Rei, who just sheepishly claims she got turned around trying to find the infirmary. She yanks Rei by the hand, scolding her for getting lost. Aoi can't wrap her head around how someone as powerful as Rei has absolutely zero sense of direction. The two finally make it back to the infirmary, and the second they step inside, Aoi is all business grilling Arata about why he ghosted the guild before and why he was throwing down with Takatora. Arata fumbles for an answer, but Rei cuts in explaining that if he registers with the guild, he'll have their full protection. She lists off all the other perks he'd get, clearly confused why he's so resistant to joining. But Arata's lips remain sealed. Rei sighs, telling him that no matter what he decides, he's going to be under surveillance for his own safety, but she promises they won't try to run his life. After laying it all on the table, Rei asks him if he's finally ready to talk. Arata opens his mouth, a confession on his lips, but then he snaps it shut. The thought of his brother flashes through his mind. Saying anything could put him in unimaginable danger. Seeing the conflict raging in his eyes, Rei perceptively backs off, announcing to both of them that it's time to head out. Arata is completely baffled, but Aoi practically lights up at the suggestion. Later that night, Arata finds himself at a restaurant table with the two girls. He's stunned that he managed to slip out of that intense situation so easily. Aoi points out that he's been in non-stop combat for days. Being a grinder is cool and all, but she tells him that even hardcore players need to take a break. The idea sounds like heaven to Arata, who suddenly realizes he can't remember the last time he had a real meal. Spread before him is a feast of incredible dishes and sizzling meat. He figures he can afford to just chill for a little while before resuming the search for his brother. Aoi encourages him to eat his heart out, casually mentioning the guild is covering the entire bill. Arata is floored by their insane generosity. It hits him that they've done nothing but save his skin time and time again, and he hasn't offered them anything in return. He questions if he even deserves this kindness, but the smell from the grill overwhelms his guilt. He can't resist any longer. Arata dives in, thanking them between mouthfuls. Tears start streaming down his face as he devours the first good meal he's had. In what feels like an eternity, the girls just smile, joining him at the table, genuinely happy to see him like this. For a fleeting moment, Arata wonders if he ever would have experienced this sitting with these incredible people if he hadn't found that orb. Once they've made a dent in the food, Rei decides it's time for a little Q&A. She tells him that he's free to ask her anything he wants in return. Her first question, is he a newly awakened slayer? Aoi nudges Arata, teasing him, saying he's getting the VIP treatment. Most guild members would kill for a one-on-one chat with Rei. Seeing his opening, Arata jumps on it, telling Rei he has a question for her. He needs to know how the guild finds magic fissures. He's desperate to beat Takatora to the next one. Rei reveals that they don't find them, they forecast them. It's basically like predicting an earthquake. She explains they analyze a ton of data, geomagnetism, gravity waves, and historical disturbance cycles to triangulate the approximate time and location where a new fissure will tear open. Even then, she admits their accuracy caps out at around 60%. Aoi notices Rei is actually smiling while talking to Arata, a sight so rare it's practically a miracle. Suddenly, Rei's phone buzzes. It's an alert. A magic fissure is predicted to open near the LK building in less than an hour. The initial data projects it to be a silver-class fissure. A wave of concern washes over Rei's face. She looks at the other two and declares that dinner is officially over. A fissure of that level means high-ranking monsters are about to pour through. She glances at Aoi, who without a shred of hesitation says she's in. Arata immediately chimes in, saying if Aoi's going, he's going too. Rei agrees to let Arata tag along but gives him a stern warning not to get cocky, because a silver-rank dungeon will chew him up and spit him out if he's not careful. Arata promises he'll stay on high alert, but inside, a voice tells him that with all his recent leveling up, he can totally handle a silver-rank fissure. With that, Aoi and Arata race out into the night, racing toward the exact spot the fissure was predicted to rip open. And right on cue, they watch reality tear itself apart, birthing a silver-rank fissure from the glowing rift. Aoi can practically feel the battle lust radiating off Arata and asks if he's good. He just cracks a confident grin, assuring her he's more than fine and can totally smoke this thing. With that, they both plunge into the fissure to get the job done. This time, they materialize inside a landscape of ancient crumbling ruins. Arata can't help but ask what these pocket dimensions are actually made of. Aoi explains, the common theory is that they're just lairs for monsters, but nobody can say for sure if that's the whole story. She says the fissures usually collapse once the boss is taken down, but she's pretty sure there are some permanent ones out there. Arata is stunned to hear this theory. That changes everything. Arata is in the middle of saying how quiet it is when a deep rumbling shakes the ground beneath their feet. Before either of them can process what's happening, a level 25 sandworm explodes from below its massive mouth, a horrifying vortex of jagged teeth. Then just as fast, it dives back under the sand. Aoi yells at Arata that their only hope is to listen for its movements. Aoi focuses her ears, tuning into the subtle shifts in the sand, and she manages to track the sandworm aiming right for them, just moments before it erupts from the ground. Then her face pales. She realizes there isn't just one, there are dozens. Basically, they'd been completely surrounded before they even knew what hit them. Aoi is starting to freak out, but Arata calmly tells her not to sweat it. Arata presses his palm to the ground, unleashing his suit in a thin black film that spreads out beneath the sand, sensing for vibrations. By doing this, Arata is certain he can feel out exactly where the sandworms are going to strike from next. Just as he planned, he feels a tremor, and pinpoints the worm's exit point the instant its head breaks the surface. Arata's shadow blade is already swinging. He lops the sandworm's head clean off and realizes, this is going to be easy. As long as he knows where they're popping up, it's just a deadly game of whack-a-mole. Aoi is blown away by Arata's strategy, literally calling it a game of whack-a-mole. Arata reveals that he spent his entire recovery time in the infirmary, thinking up new ways to use his powers. Arata explains that he had a theory if he could spread the suit out thinly enough, he should be able to connect his senses to it. Since he was stuck in a hospital bed, this was the only training he could actually practice. Arata is stoked that it all worked out, especially since this is his first time trying it for real. He's already realizing his suit has insane potential beyond just combat. Aoi praises his genius idea and agrees that with this tactic they can handle the sandworm infestation no problem. Arata keeps up the strategy, and in just a few moments he's hunted down every last sandworm, leaving only the fisher's boss. But he warns Aoi not to drop her guard. They come upon what looks like an ancient tomb, and Aoi urges Arata to stay alert, because her gut is screaming that something is wrong. She barely gets the words out when a stinger radiating a terrifying aura shoots out of the sand right behind them. Arata's first thought is that it's just another worm, but Aoi quickly tells him he's dead wrong. She screams that if that stinger so much as grazes them, they'll be begging for a quick end. Just then, the stinger lunges from the sand again, this time aiming for Arata, but he's already prepared for it before it even gets close. He whips around and slices it clean in half with his shadow blade. Arata scoffs, saying the beast is wasting its energy trying to hide in the sand, because he already spread his suit deep underground, turning the whole area into his personal territory. Aoi is impressed with Arata's foresight, praising him for setting up the sensor net in advance. Aoi has to admit Arata has leveled up big time. He agrees that he's gotten way stronger, plus this time Aoi is fighting alongside him. He calculates that with his current power level, he should be able to take on silver rank threats, or maybe even something stronger. Right on cue, the fisher's boss finally decides to show its face, and it turns out to be a very ticked-off level 29 death scorpion. Even though Arata already managed to snip off its stinger, the monster is still incredibly dangerous, with two massive claws ready to crush them. The scorpion swings one of its giant claws right at them, but Aoi dives in, blocking the devastating blow with her shield. The impact is massive, and Aoi struggles against the scorpion's raw power. Arata sees the cracks forming in her defense. He knows he has to act fast before things get ugly. He charges toward the scorpion, but the creature sees him coming and swings its other claw, nearly slicing him in two. Thanks to his insane agility, he manages to flip out of the way just in time. Suddenly, Arata feels himself floating into the air on a platform made of water. A quick thinking move from Aoi. She yells for him to use the high ground she created to get an advantage over the gigantic and terrifying scorpion. Arata gives her a quick thanks before launching himself off the platform and severing the scorpion's head, showering the area in disgusting green blood. Aoi rushes over to Arata, her face beaming with relief. They actually manage to defeat the scorpion. Arata is just as relieved and tells her they can finally go home. But just as they're about to celebrate, Aoi freezes. Something is seriously wrong with this picture. She points out that the victory screen hasn't popped up, a glitch that has literally never happened after dropping a boss. The dungeon itself should be collapsing by now, but everything is dead silent. The gears in Arata's head finally start to turn, and he gets what Aoi is hinting at. He asks her if it's possible for a dungeon to just not close. In that exact moment, a bone-chilling presence floods the room. A voice cuts through the silence, coming from a shadowy figure lounging right beside them. The guy's got these long, creepy ears, and a dark purple energy just bleeds from his body, like a full-blown demon. The dude casually mentions how entertaining it was to watch them take down the scorpion. Arata and Aoi are completely floored, seeing another magic beast, when they already defeated the dungeon boss. But the real shocker, this thing can actually talk. The shadowy figure then brags about how he loves puppeteering beasts to eliminate slayers, and that's when it all clicks for Aoi. This creature was the real puppet master, secretly controlling the boss the entire time, a tactic that's supposed to be impossible. The magic beast decides it's time for a little live demonstration of his skills. Seeing the scorpion's severed claws on the ground, he flexes his power, and the dead limbs twitch back to life. He commands them to fight until nothing is left. Arata's mind is blown. This guy can control monsters, even after they've been torn to pieces. The reanimated claws lunge at them, forcing them to frantically spam their ranged attacks, just to blow the scorpion parts to smithereens. The puppet master just looks bored by the whole display, and suggests they'd make for much more entertaining puppets. Aoi can't even begin to process what kind of overpowered monster they've accidentally stumbled upon. With a flick of his wrist, The sinister dude rips open a new portal right there in the boss room, inviting them to step inside. He promises them a welcome party they'll never forget, if they're brave enough to follow. Arata is stunned. They just ran into a dungeon, hidden inside another dungeon. Arata puts it together. This guy is hijacking dungeons and collecting bosses like they're trading cards. Aoi confirms his theory, saying the portal in front of them looks like it leads to his main headquarters. This new dungeon radiates a far more terrifying aura than any they've ever seen, but Aoi knows they have no choice. To clear the first dungeon, they have to dive into this new one and take out the puppet master for good. The warm-up is officially over. The real battle has just begun. Swallowing their fear, the two step through the portal into what looks like a massive, ominous castle. Arata wonders if this place is somehow connected to the human world. Little do they know, predatory eyes are watching them from the shadows above. Suddenly, a beast drops from the ceiling, its sword flashing as it plummets towards Arata, aiming to take his head clean off. But Arata's reflexes are on another level. He whips around and fires a point-blank cannon blast into the beast, blowing a massive hole straight through its torso. But as the creature falls, they realize the horrifying truth. They are completely surrounded by a massive horde of monsters. And these aren't just regular mobs. Every last one of them is a boss-level threat, all under the puppet master's command. Arata can't get over how shameless this guy is, turning powerful creatures into his personal playthings. Aoi tells Arata that together, they might just be strong enough to wipe them all out. Arata draws his sword and carves through a whole squad of them, but for every one, they cut down two more, take its place. As exhaustion starts to set in, they know they need a new strategy. They have to ignore the endless army and make a beeline for the guy in charge. Aoi points towards their target, and the two of them sprint through the chaos, a wave of monster puppets hot on their heels. They finally break through the horde and reach the throne room, where the puppet master is waiting for them on his throne. But getting to him wasn't the end of it. He's flanked by two terrifying colossal knights, both wielding swords the size of giants. The puppet master smirks, telling them that even though they cleared out some of his pawns, he has a nearly endless supply in reserve. Aoi glares back, pointing out that they only need to kill him. Once he's gone, his entire puppet army will crumble with him. The villain just throws his head back and laughs, calling their confidence cute. But in his eyes, they're nothing more than trash. So Arata asks him what his endgame is. Why go to all this trouble to collect magic beasts? The dude's answer is simple because it's fun for him. He thinks turning other creatures into his puppets and controlling their every move is the ultimate thrill. He then adds that humans are no different to him. He wants to turn powerful fighters like Arata and Aoi into his prized puppets. In his world, it's the right of the strong to dominate the weak. That's when Arata decides to ask the real question, the one that changes everything. He wants to know if there's a way to reverse the transformation to turn a magic beast back into a human. Aoi's eyes go wide at the question, but a cruel smile spreads across the demon's face. He instantly realizes that Arata has someone precious he wants to save. Tell me, Arata demands, his voice trembling with rage. The puppet master lets out a chuckle, telling Arata he might just spill the secret, if Arata can actually manage to defeat him. And with that, the villain unleashes his true power, the ability to manipulate blood. The air instantly fills with razor-sharp projectiles made of blood, all homing in on Arata. He manages to block the main barrage, but several projectiles still pierce his body. While he's reeling from the attack, one of the massive knights closes the distance in an instant. All Arata can do is watch as the giant's blade comes swinging down, poised to finish him, but like clockwork, Aoi dives in to save him. A brilliant shield materializes, intercepting the knight's devastating blow meant for Arata. But the effort alone sends a shockwave of pain through Aoi's body. Arata scrambles to her side, but she just brushes him off, insisting she's fine. She is so not fine. Still, Aoi shoves Arata toward the main boss, telling him to obliterate the demon while she holds off the knights. Arata makes the vow, charging head-on at the demon, with one single thought burning in his mind: he absolutely cannot let Aoi suffer one more scratch. Aoi channels a quick healing spell into herself, just enough to get back on her feet, so she can deal with the knights and link back up with Arata. Aoi realizes her only shot is a one and done, a single attack, to wipe out all these creatures simultaneously. There's only one way to pull it off. She pours every last drop of her power into the one skill she believes can turn the tide. She gathers her energy and unleashes a cataclysmic blast that completely vaporizes the knights. Except, the knights just reform themselves from the dust. She's not even shocked. A part of her totally expected that would happen. With whatever dregs of power she has left, Aoi braces for another round against the knights as Arata closes the distance to the Demon King. The demon watches intrigued, and Arata stops his own bleeding by mixing soot and blood to force it to clot. Now that's a neat trick, the demon muses. A twisted smile spreads across his face as he asks Arata, "You're from my world, aren't you?" The question hits Arata like a ton of bricks. He instantly knows the dude is talking about his unique skill. But instead of a long chat, the demon suggests they wrap up their little death match. He's dying to see which is superior, his demonic blood or Arata's mysterious soot. The demon hurls a torrent of blood at Arata, who counters by blasting it apart with his burst soot cannon. The demon just switches tactics. He cracks a blood whip through the air, daring Arata to deal with it. With a flash of darkness, Arata cleaves it in two with his shadow blade. This level of power coming from Arata just gets the demon more hyped. He relentlessly launches whip after whip at Arata, but Arata deflects every single one. The demon taunts him, screaming for him to unleash his true power. Arata, however, knows exactly what's happening. At this rate, the demon is just going to wear him down until he collapses from exhaustion. The demon mocks him again, calling him a one-trick pony. And then he decides to cross a line. You know, the demon smirks, once I'm done with you, I think I'll go have some fun with your little friend over there. And he redirects a blood attack straight for Aoi. She's already completely overwhelmed by the knights. Arata whips his head around, screaming her name, but in that split second of distraction, a blood spear erupts from his back. Shock and confusion paralyze him as he coughs up a spray of blood before collapsing to the unforgiving ground. The demon sneers down at him. Rule number 1, never take your eyes off your opponent. He then cracks his knuckles, ready to turn Arata into his newest puppet. Just like he threatened, he aims a final blood spike to finish Arata, but somehow Aoi appears, shielding him one last time. The demon is absolutely furious that Aoi is ruining his masterpiece. Aoi just stares him down, admitting, "You must be pretty strong to have actually taken Arata down." But instead of wasting her breath, Aoi covertly begins channeling her healing magic into Arata, hiding it from the demon's view. When the demon finally notices, he laughs cruelly, telling her, "You know he died protecting you, right?" But he lets her know there's no point in trying to heal a corpse. His words pierce her heart, the idea that she's the reason Arata is dead, and it sends her spiraling back to a dark memory. The image of a monster slaughtering her sister Minato flashes before her eyes. For a second, Aoi feels herself about to break, but she forces herself back from the edge, recognizing that the demon is just playing twisted mind games to break her spirit. She realizes all she needs to do is buy time. Just hold on until Arata is back on his feet. Aoi is not about to give up on him. The demon decides to toy with them. He lashes out with his blood whip, but Aoi summons a water shield that easily repels the attack. Realizing she's a water attribute user, the demon just laughs. He keeps up the assault, but Aoi stands her ground, blocking everything he throws at her. She tells the demon flatly that her water attribute was born for one purpose, to stop the spilling of blood. Apparently her power is designed to blend with anything, making it the ultimate support ability. And she has been training non-stop, just to perfect her role as a supporter. It's then that the demon finally gets it. Aoi is diluting the potency of his blood magic by mixing it with her water. The demon isn't even mad, he just figures he needs to produce way more blood. Aoi knows she can't hold out forever. Eventually, the sheer volume of his power will completely overwhelm her. In that desperate moment, Arata's eyes snap open. Wasting no time, Aoi creates a bubble of pure water and sends it to him. "Mix this with your soot," she yells. It's time to flip the script. Arata does exactly as she says, but the demon just laughs at their pathetic little plan. He tells them they have absolutely no chance. The demon unleashes his blood whip like before, but this time Arata meets it head-on with his soot, now supercharged with water particles. The new attack doesn't just block the blood, Whip It devours it, stunning the demon. He had no idea that water is the ultimate amplifier. It can magnify any power it touches. With her job done, Aoi steps back, leaving the rest of the fight to Arata. She tells him to go finish this demon for good. With zero hesitation, Arata closes the distance, his shadow blade erupting to gouge a raw, bloody canyon across the demon's chest. A geyser of blood erupts as the demon staggers back, the sheer force of the blow, slamming him to the floor, clutching his ruined chest in agony. Through gritted teeth, he admits this kid is on another level, the very first human to ever make him feel true pain. The demon's mind reels. He's always had the upper hand, always been the predator, but now the entire script has been flipped. His mind snaps back to the moment he was leaving his realm. The demon Valgad remembers his subordinate, begging him not to go. But he was arrogant and blew him off even after a chilling warning: "The one thing you've ignored will come back to end you." Valgad stares in disbelief. Every single word of that prophecy is coming true, right before his eyes. Arata's voice cuts through the haze, demanding to know how to reverse the transformation of humans into magic beasts, but Valgad just scoffs. He sneers that the deal was he'd talk if Arata won. That's all it takes for Arata to snap roaring at him to spill the secret. All he cares about is finding a way to turn his brother back into a human. Valgad takes a long, dramatic breath, as if he's about to reveal a world-shattering secret, but it's a fake-out. He just explodes with laughter, his voice dripping with cruelty as he tells Arata it's completely impossible. Valgad drives the knife in deeper, claiming there's no undo button. Once someone becomes a magic beast, they're a beast forever. The color drains from Arata's face, his hope shattering into a million pieces, and Valgad just soaks it in, savoring his despair. Arata can only watch paralyzed as Valgad's body disintegrates into dust. In that moment, a system notification flashes he's vaulted from level 15 to level 21. Yet he remains frozen, a statue of grief. Aoi appears behind him, gently asking if he's okay just as something clatters to the ground. She snatches it up. She yells for his attention. This is a first. A boss has never dropped an item before. Aoi presses the item into his hand, telling him this could unlock a seriously special skill. The moment he grabs it, the system confirms it. The skill is vassalization. Arata's blood runs cold. It's the exact same power Valgad used, but he couldn't care less. A pop-up explains the terrifying ability he can resurrect the dead to serve as his loyal puppets. There's a massive catch though. The resurrected retain none of their old powers or personality. They're just empty shells hardwired to obey their master's every command. When the fissure finally dissolves, they're back in the real world. But Arata doesn't look like a victor. He looks like a man who just lost everything. Valgad's final words, "It's impossible," are a poison, replaying over and over in his head, but a part of him refuses to believe it. Aoi can see the storm brewing in his eyes and tries to ground him, promising him they'll find another way if they stick together. That's when Arata's resolve hardens. He declares that even if he can't make his brother human again, he is still going to save him, no matter the cost. Back at the guild, Aoi debriefs Rei on the entire chaotic battle, her heart aching for what Arata is going through. Rei immediately pieces it together. Arata's powers and Valgad's come from the same dark origin. Her strategic mind suggests they capture his brother for surveillance. But Aoi vouches for him instantly, insisting Arata would never harm innocent people, even if his power source is sketchy. He tells Rei with unshakable confidence that fighting alongside him proved his character, adding that if he ever did cross a line, she herself would be the one to stop him. Struck by Aoi's fierce loyalty, Rei concedes, telling her to let Arata have some space to process everything. She informs Aoi that she'll run her proposal by the association. Meanwhile, Arata walks like a ghost back to his old home. The apartment is a mess, a time capsule of abandonment, looking more like a forgotten ruin than a place where anyone ever lived. Arata wanders through their home, haunted by the crushing realization his brother might be gone for good. Lost in memories of his brother, reality itself suddenly shatters as a glowing fissure rips open right in front of him, leaving Arata completely stunned. A rift, inside his own room. The thought hits him like a lightning bolt. Could his brother be on the other side? He cautiously steps through the shimmering portal, and a wave of shock hits him. This place. It's eerily familiar. Shoving aside his questions, he pushes forward to investigate. But after several minutes of walking through the unsettling quiet, he starts to wonder, where's the danger? He finally stumbles upon a scene of pure destruction. The floor ahead is completely shattered as if by some immense power. His eyes lock onto a door at the far end, but when he tries the handle, it's jammed shut, blocked by a heavy wooden beam. No problem. He unsheathes his blade and splinters the door into pieces. Stepping through the wreckage, his heart stops. There in the center of the room stands his brother, but he's been twisted into a monstrous level 38 boss. The creature's eyes are vacant, showing zero recognition, but Arata breaks down, tears of relief and sorrow streaming down his face. He's finally found him. Through his sobs, he tells the beast he's been searching everywhere, never imagining he'd find him trapped in a nightmare like this. Trying to ignore the horrifying transformation, Arata speaks to him like nothing's changed, begging his big bro to just come home. His only response is a violent turn and a blinding energy blast that slams him into the wall with bone-jarring force. Arata refuses to fight desperately, pleading with the monster, trying to make him remember. But the beast just lunges for another savage attack. In a desperate gamble, Arata dodges and vaults onto its massive shoulder, trying to get close to break through whatever curse has taken hold of him. It's a complete failure. He's brutally swatted away like a fly sent crashing hard onto the cold stone floor. As he lies there broken, he has to ask himself, is his brother truly gone, replaced by this magic beast? Then a dark memory surfaces, the vassalization skill. It's the power he gained from defeating Valgard. But there's a soul-crushing catch to use it. The target has to be dead. Paralyzed by the impossible choice, he doesn't even see the next attack coming. Another brutal blow sends him sprawling, and this time he just stays down. The guilt is crushing him. He failed to save his brother. As the beast charges in for the final blow, Arata just closes his eyes. But right before the claws can connect, a massive torrent of water erupts from nowhere, blasting the beast off its feet and sending it flying. Arata scrambles to his feet, completely bewildered, his eyes locked on his fallen brother. That's when a smug voice cuts through the silence from behind. It's Takatora calling him a pathetic loser, and acting like some kind of hero who just swooped in for the save. Without a second thought, Arata throws himself between Takatora and his brother, yelling at him to stay out of it. Takatora is livid. Why is this idiot protecting a magic beast? And then the pieces click into place. The monster is Arata's brother. Arata demands to know what Takatora is doing here, and the guy doesn't even bother to lie. He admits he's been spying on Arata the whole time. He smugly explains that as long as Arata is tied to the Navy Guild, he's got eyes on everything Arata does. That's it. To shield his brother, Arata summons his Shadow Blade, Takatora responds by materializing his own shimmering ice blade, telling Arata he's just been handed the perfect excuse to finally kill him. After all, who would question him for putting down a guy defending a monster? Takatora openly admits he's going to murder Arata and call it justice. Blinded by rage, Arata lunges, swinging his sword wildly, but Takatora parries the strike with zero effort. He mockingly asks Arata if he really thinks he has the power to protect that thing. He's not a beast, he's my brother, Arata screams back. Ignoring him completely, Takatora launches a ranged attack, but the ice projectile curves, homing in on his brother. Panicked, Arata instinctively glances back to check if he's okay. A fatal mistake. Takatora scoffs at him for looking away mid-fight. The insult fuels Arata's fury, and he unleashes another desperate flurry of strikes. But Takatora casually bats away every single attack, telling him not to get ahead of himself. He just laughs at Arata's pathetic attempts. He promises to slice them both to pieces. Arata is forced back, battered and bruised, but he keeps his ground, shielding his brother. He screams it again and again. He's not a beast. He would die here before letting anyone harm the brother he shares so many memories with. This raw determination fuels him. Channeling everything he has, Arata charges Takatora one more time. This time, his strike carries a new weight, a new power. For the first time, Takatora is forced to leap back to dodge. Still, he keeps running his mouth. He resorts to mocking Arata for being poor trash. Then he drops a chilling line. It's the end of the line for his whole family. Arata freezes, demanding to know what he means. A sickening grin spreads across Takatora's face as he mentions there were two other magic beasts he had to deal with, referring to Arata's parents. He confesses everything. He slaughtered them without a second thought, casually mentioning he even farmed them for experience points. That's it, Arata snaps. A suffocating powerful aura erupts from his body, but Takatora just looks bored. He yawns, telling Arata there will be no mercy before unleashing his deadliest ice technique straight at him. A monstrous three-headed hydra, made of pure ice, materializes and slithers towards him. Arata braces himself, gripping his sword and swinging with all his might. The sheer force of the blow shatters two of the icy heads, but the third one lunges past his guard. Even Takatora has to admit Arata's definitely leveled up, but it's not even close. The final monstrous head hurtles straight for Arata, and he knows. He's not fast enough to dodge. The jaws are about to snap shut, when in a flash of movement, his brother intercepts, shielding him from the blow. With a sickening crunch, his brother obliterates the last head, leaving Arata completely stunned. But he doesn't stop there. He pivots and charges straight for Takatora, slamming into him with enough force to send him flying into the far wall. Arata's jaw hits the floor as he watches this unfold, making him question if his brother can actually identify the true enemy here. Takatora finds himself face to face with the monstrous sibling, and even he is visibly shaken by this insane turn of events. A beast protecting a human, he refuses to accept it. Shaking off the confusion, Takatora decides he'll just have to slaughter them both. This sparks an idea in Arata's mind. He just might have a shot, if he can somehow immobilize Takatora. Flashing back to the water bubble incident, he decides to try a variation of the same trick. He slams his palm onto the ground, unleashing a thick cloud of soot. Takatora scoffs, assuming it's just another pathetic smokescreen, and he summons his water powers to disperse it. But before he can register his mistake, the soot fuses with the water, morphing into a thick, sticky goo. Takatora finds himself stuck fast in the muck, and a grin spreads across Arata's face. His gamble paid off. He believes he's just created the perfect opening to finally end this. He lunges forward for the kill, but before he's even halfway there, Takatora effortlessly dissolves the entire sticky trap. Takatora raises his blade for the killing blow, but out of nowhere, his brother materializes right behind him. Before he can even process it, Arata's brother claps his massive hands together on him, creating a deafening sonic boom. Arata stares, shocked and exhilarated. He can't believe it, his brother actually defeated Takatora. Arata starts to let his guard down, but his relief evaporates when he sees his brother cough up a spray of blood. The color drains from Arata's face as Takatora emerges from the smoke, without a scratch slicing through his brother, as if he were tissue paper. A gut-wrenching scream tears from Arata's throat, but it's useless. Takatora's blade carves straight through his brother's soul. Arata collapses to his knees, as his only family disintegrates into a cloud of dust right before his very eyes. He's still reeling in disbelief when the system notification chimes in, announcing that the fissure has been cleared. Arata is transported back to his room, tears streaming down his face as Takatora looms over him. "I told you not to get cocky," the victor sneers, twisting the knife. He continues to mock him, adding that learning one little skill doesn't make him a winner. Through the tears and rage, Arata chokes out a single, chilling promise, telling Takatora, "I'm going to kill you." With that, he rises to his feet, a dark, horrifying aura exploding around him. Oppressive shadows flood the entire room, and even Takatora feels the immense pressure. Still, he's not fazed. This isn't the first time Arata tried to act tough, and every time before Takatora put him right back on his arse. I'll finish you in one strike, Takatora declares. But before his muscles can even twitch, he's completely engulfed by a storm of pure soot. An instant later, Arata's sword connects, blasting Takatora clean out of the room. Takatora crashes to the ground outside his body, screaming in agony, his mind reeling with one question: how is he losing to this weakling? Arata stalks toward him, his voice dripping with venom. I could kill you 1,000 times, and it would never be enough. For the first time, Takatora feels a genuine chill run down his spine. He can't believe this kid he wrote off as trash is terrifying him. Shoving the fear down, he forces himself back to his feet, dead set on finishing this. He unleashes his ultimate attack. But this time, Arata's shadow power simply devours it whole. The next thing Takatora knows, he's pinned to the ground, impaled by dozens of shadow blades that erupted from the floor. Arata's face is a mask of pure, unrecognizable rage as he walks over. What's wrong? He taunts. Done fighting already. Raw fear begins to set in, and Takatora's only thought is that he needs to escape. The mere thought of escape only fuels Arata's fury. He unleashes a crushing wave of power that knocks Takatora out cold. Arata moves in for the final fatal blow, but Aoi's brilliant shield materializes over Takatora, protecting him. Aoi herself appears on the scene, telling Arata that she will never let him touch Takatora, but even she can sense the absolutely insane power radiating from Arata's aura. Her barrier is no match. A single shadow blade slices through it like butter and slashes her arm, making her cry out in pain. Aoi is left wondering what kind of demonic power Arata is wielding, even though she knows she has no chance. She stands her ground, determined to defend Takatora and stop Arata from going over the edge. But Aoi knows she's completely outmatched. She's terrified that if Arata's aura intensifies anymore, things will get even worse. Lying weakly on the ground, Takatora mocks them both, sneering that the association will step in once they realize how bad things have gotten. Aoi, however, is completely focused on how to snap Arata back to his normal self. But she's too late to stop him. As he unleashes another wave of aura into the city, an explosion of power that starts demolishing nearby buildings. From her office, Rei watches the destruction unfold, and decides it's finally time for her to step in and subdue Arata personally. At the Jade Sky Guild, Takuto gets an alert about Arata's out-of-control rampage. He knows it's time for him to get involved and take Arata off the streets as our hero's rampage continues. A crushing aura erupts from his body as he locks onto Aoi, poised to deliver the final lethal blow. Just then, Rei materializes. Her own power flares, deflecting Arata's strike, as she whispers an apology to Aoi for her late arrival, gently setting her down. She urges her injured friend to rest, promising she'll handle Arata. Rei instantly realizes something must have snapped inside him, unleashing this unhinged fury. He's gone completely feral. And right on cue, Takuto strolls onto the scene, absolutely hyped for a showdown with the berserker. But Rei immediately tries to block his path. Takuto just scoffs, revealing that the association has a different perspective on this whole situation. Hearing this, Rei's blood runs cold. She demands to know exactly what the association is planning. He sidesteps the question instead, pointing out how attached Rei and Aoi have become to Arata. Rei fires back that she's just doing what any responsible guildmaster would. The two are still caught in a heated argument, when Arata lunges, aiming to skewer Takuto from behind. Rei screams a warning, but Takuto looks completely unbothered, almost bored. Arata swings his sword in a wild frenzy, but Takuto's form suddenly dissolves into a cascade of glowing petals. The sight shocks Rei, but before anyone can process it, Takuto reappears and slams Arata with his signature skill, the ethereal dance. The impact sends Arata crashing to the pavement, leaving Rei speechless. She never dreamed Takuto's technique could neutralize Arata so easily. Without a second thought, she plants her feet, declaring that she won't let him kill Arata. If that's his plan. Takuto just smirks, assuring Rei he has no intention of killing their mysterious friend. He admits he wouldn't want to kill someone so shrouded in secrets. Just as he says that, Arata staggers to his feet and lets out a primal roar. The second the sound escapes his lips, raw power begins funneling into him from the surroundings. Takuto doesn't even look surprised. He'd already suspected Arata was siphoning energy from magic beasts. Arata's hate-filled eyes lock back onto Takuto. He attempts to manifest a storm of phantom weapons to annihilate him, but Takuto doesn't even flinch. He's impressed, but he also sees the truth. Arata has zero control over this incredible power. He's just aiming a hurricane. Takuto's gaze flicks back to Rei, telling her he's ready to finally put Arata down. Rei is more concerned about what the association is up to, but Takuto stays silent on that front. His entire body becomes engulfed in a brilliant green aura as he prepares to end it. Before Arata can even react, Takuto's power ensnares him completely. Just as Rei starts to panic, Takuto calmly tells her that Arata isn't dead, he's just sleeping. With that, Takuto vanishes, taking Arata's unconscious body with him. As they disappear, Rei can only fear the worst for what will happen to Arata, in the hands of the association. At that moment, Aoi returns to the scene after helping civilians escape the area. She's horrified to see no trace of Arata anywhere. Rei struggles to find the words to tell her he's been taken. The next time Arata wakes up, he finds himself chained to a wall. As he's trying to figure out where he is, some dude who looks like a total maniac strolls in. He's holding a whip and a twisted smile spreads across his face as he announces he's about to get started. Meanwhile, Takuto is absolutely livid that Arata escaped his clutches. He vows to one day crush him along with the Heavenly Five, so he can stand at the pinnacle of power. And even though he's furious, he didn't get to finish Arata off. He's also low-key relieved, knowing Arata is about to face some serious punishment from the association. Later, Rei visits Arata in the holding cell, where he is clearly being tortured. She begs him to cooperate with her, so she can make his path easier, but Arata just stares at her with empty eyes. He tells her he honestly doesn't care what happens to him anymore. Right in the middle of their tense conversation, Rei receives an emergency alert. 3 Silver Slayers have disappeared inside a rift, and Aoi has gone in alone to rescue them. Rei is stunned that Aoi went on a rescue mission, when she should be recovering from her own injuries. She knows how Aoi always pushes herself past her breaking point, even when her body is screaming at her to rest. Knowing the extreme danger, she realizes Aoi is in serious trouble. Earlier at Slayer's headquarters, Director Dojo makes a call to the Golden Slayers, apologizing for interrupting their packed schedules, but he explains that they are facing a critical emergency. Dojo gets straight to the point, and informs them that they have Arata in custody. Ryo is floored by the news, telling the director that Arata isn't a bad person. They can't just imprison him without a single piece of evidence, or at least a formal hearing. Dojo calmly lists the charges against Arata, engaging in combat while out of control, and causing catastrophic destruction to the city. He adds that worst of all, Arata defied association rules, and completely shattered the public's trust. He continues explaining that Arata's unknown power is believed to originate from the Magai, and many of the other Slayers are now demanding his execution. Ryo and Rei are horrified by this, and Rei immediately tells Dojo that she will take full and complete responsibility for Arata, since she was the one tasked with supervising him in the Navy Guild. Dojo then informs them that their mission now is to determine Arata's true nature and interrogate him about any connections to the Magai. Dojo drops a bombshell. Arata's bizarre connection to the Magai might be their one and only shot at uncovering the truth. The second Shion hears this, her blood runs cold. She knows they've unleashed an interrogator on Arata, and she can't help but feel for the poor kid. Dojo then puts the Gold Slayers on high alert, warning them to brace for some seriously strange moves from the Magai. The call ends, and it hits Rei like a ton of bricks. Arata is in a world of hurt. Meanwhile, deep in a subterranean prison cell, the Slayer's personal inquisitor, Ikazo Kamigari, is having the time of his life with Arata, a so-called first-class violator. He snarls at Arata, demanding he spill every secret he has on the Magai, because from this point forward, the kid gloves are off. Kamigari promises to lash Arata so hard his flesh will literally peel from his bones. Through a swollen, battered face, Arata swears to the sadist that he knows nothing. This just fuels Kamigari's rage, and he raises his whip to strike. But as the whip slices through the air, the door bursts open, and Rei's voice thunders, "Stop," before she formally introduces herself. She commands Kamigari to call off the torture session. Kamigari is floored seeing such a high-ranking slayer in a filthy hole like this, and immediately questions if she has authorization. Rei bluffs, claiming she has all the permission she needs, and orders Kamigari out of the room. She needs to speak with the prisoner alone. Kamigari stalks out, but not without warning Rei about the consequences of breaking the rules. The moment he's gone, Rei remarks on how wrecked Arata looks, and asks if he remembers transforming, right before he went on a wild rampage. Arata is totally bewildered. The last thing he can recall is battling Takatora right after watching him murder his brother. After that, it's all a black void. Rei reveals it was Aoi who jumped in to stop him from finishing Takatora off. The revelation shocks Arata to his core, and Rei keeps going, explaining that Aoi was caught in the blast but is now receiving medical treatment. A wave of guilt washes over Arata when he hears this, and he mutters that he deserves every bit of this pain. He confesses that he has nothing left to live for anyway. He was forced to watch as the only person in the world he cared for, his brother, was slaughtered before his eyes while he stood there helpless. As they're absorbed in this heavy conversation, an alert flashes through. Aoi has entered the rift on a rescue mission. A jolt of panic hits Arata. He demands to know what happened to Aoi. Rei quickly explains that they lost all communication, with a team of Silver Slayers and Aoi, despite not being fully healed, charged into the rift after them. Rei decides she needs to get Dojo on the line. Arata looks completely defeated until Rei puts a firm hand on his shoulder, reminding him that while the past is set in stone, there's still a mission only he can accomplish, as long as he wields the power of a Slayer. In a broken whisper, Arata says he has nothing left, but Rei tells him she can't judge whether he's evil, but she sensed something powerful from him. With a decisive move, Rei shatters the chains, binding Arata. declaring that she trusts her instincts, and that's why she's setting him free. At that exact moment, Kamigari storms back into the cell. He's grinning. He just got confirmation that she never received permission, exposing her entire lie. Kamigari taunts Rei, saying that even a guildmaster gets no mercy for lying to protect a criminal. Kamigari unfurls his whip as he advances on Rei, gloating that the area's magnetic field blocks skill activation. To make matters worse, the whip he's holding breaks the sound barrier, meaning he holds all the power here, since Rei is essentially powerless without her skills. Kamigari is practically vibrating with glee, admitting he never dreamed he'd get a shot at beating down a golden slayer. He lunges forward to strike, but Rei moves like lightning, planting a devastating kick square in his chest, completely rearranging his internal organs. In his shocked state, Rei coolly informs the creep that she'll be getting that permission slip right after she's finished with him. Another urgent message pings there's no backup available to rescue Aoi. Rei locks eyes with Arata, her voice intense. Moping about the past changes nothing, she says, but the choice you make right now will define who you are. The words hit Arata with the force of a physical blow, and he pauses, truly thinking. He knows he's lost so much, but he still has comrades who fought alongside him. A fire ignites within him from that single thought, and he swears to himself he will never lose someone precious again. With steel in his voice, Arata tells Rei he's going to save Aoi, no matter the cost. A proud smile spreads across Rei's face. She tells him they should all focus on getting back for a barbecue celebration. Arata takes off scrambling to find a way out of the facility. He rounds a corner and runs straight into a trio of officials, ready to drag him back to his cell. Arata freezes, completely cornered, with no idea how to get out of this. Before he can even process a plan, a laid-back voice calls out. Rio appears, teasing Arata that he came to see what all the fuss was about when he heard he'd been thrown in the slammer. Rio then casually asks Arata what his big plan is now that he's a fugitive. Arata's response is simple and firm. I'm going to do what needs to be done. Rio's eyes narrow just a bit, as he asks if this has to do with the brother he mentioned before. But Arata flat out refuses, telling him that saving his comrade is the only thing that matters. He declares he doesn't give a damn what happens to him afterwards. Rio is stunned, seeing that unyielding fire still blazing in Arata's eyes. In that moment, Rio decides to shoulder the entire burden, telling the officials to back off because he'll be keeping Arata on a tight leash personally. And to make sure they get the message, he tells them to report his exact words to Dojo. With everything settled, Rio gives Arata the nod. It's time to roll. A look of pure admiration flashes across Arata's face as he instantly sprints after him. Moments later, they arrive at the dimensional tear, and Rio gets straight to the point, asking what Arata meant by his comrades being in danger. Arata explains that multiple slayers have gone completely radio silent, which shocks Rio since a rift of this level shouldn't still be open. A sudden cold dread washes over Arata as he starts panicking about what might have happened to Aoi. Wasting no more time, the pair dives headfirst into the fissure, materializing inside a dense forest-type rift. But Rio immediately clocks that the area has been almost entirely swept clean, which can only mean one thing: the boss is all that's left. Arata immediately drops to a knee to activate his suit's systems, informing Rio he's starting a search for the target. Rio's eyebrows shoot up in surprise. Arata has an enemy detection skill now. The kid has seriously leveled up. In the middle of his scan, a monster hurtles towards them from the trees, but Rio casually swats it out of the air with a backhand punch that explodes with overwhelming firepower. Another beast streaks in from the right, zeroing in on Arata. Now he's pissed. Furious that the grunts are messing up his search, Arata mercilessly slices the creature in two. A smirk plays on Rio's lips when he sees it. It's proof that Arata is on a whole different level from the last time they met. With the trash taken out, Arata refocuses on his scan. A few seconds later, his head snaps up. He's sensing something seriously off. Stay sharp, Arata warns Rio. And right on cue, one of the missing Silver Slayers stumbles out from the tree line in the distance. Arata's expression instantly brightens with relief. At least one of them made it out okay, even if she looks like she's been through hell. They rush toward her, asking what went down. Just as she gasps out the words, one of the Slayers, it turned into a magic beast. Another corrupted Slayer lunges from the shadows and sinks its teeth into her. Both Rio and Arata skid to a halt, trying to process the horror they just witnessed. The girl begins to choke, and then a sickening dark aura erupts from her body, her form twisting and contorting violently. Arata's blood runs cold as he watches the girl warp into a grotesque monster right before his eyes. That's when Rio grimly states the obvious. We're dealing with an infectious type. This is an absolute worst-case scenario. The newly transformed Slayer shrieks and lunges at Arata, but Arata freezes his mind, betraying him. Because when he looks at the monster, all he can see is his brother's face. His sword arm trembles uncontrollably, despite the lethal threat inches from his face. Seeing this, Rio roars at him. What the hell are you doing? Claws are about to tear Arata's head off, but Rio yanks him back at the last possible second, saving his life. He asks if he's alright, but Arata is shaking like a leaf, drenched in a cold sweat. I can't kill people. Arata stammers out. Ryo's face hardens. That thing he says is not a person anymore. The two beasts charge them again, and this time Ryo steps forward, incinerating them both with a single explosive fire punch. After the creatures turn to ash, Ryo lays out the horrifying truth. This has to be the boss's ability. It transforms people into magic beasts, and those beasts then spread the infection to other humans. Arata opens his mouth to speak, but Ryo already knows what happened. The others, they hesitated just like you did. That's why they all got wiped out. The grim reality of the situation finally clicks. A fiery aura explodes around Ryo. If even one of these infected abominations escapes this fissure, he says with deadly calm, the fallout will be beyond catastrophic, worse than anything a cursed soul could ever cook up, which means we have to end them all. Right here, right now. At that exact moment, an immense crushing pressure descends, and the boss finally reveals itself. A hideous beast with a head full of gnashing teeth. Simultaneously, Aoi appears beside them, and Arata's face lights up with hope. For a split second, he believes she's safe, but then that same vile dark aura begins to leak from her body, as she lets out a piercing scream of pain. She collapses, and Arata scrambles to her side in a blind panic, yelling for someone, anyone, to use healing magic on her. But Aoi just shakes her head. It's no use. She whispers, apologizing for not being strong enough to protect everyone. It's then that he sees the gruesome bite mark. On her arm, the infection already consuming her. As her body begins to twist, she gives Arata a sad smile. I'm glad I got to meet you. Even if our time together was short. Her voice weakens. I'm leaving the rest to you. Arata screams in pure horror, begging her not to turn into a monster, clinging to the insane fantasy that she can still be saved. But Aoi uses her last ounce of strength to grab his hands, forcing him to look at her. From this moment on, she tells him, you have to start trusting in yourself. Aoi's gaze is unwavering. I have total faith that you will become an incredible slayer, someone who can save countless people. After delivering her final words, Aoi's body goes limp and crashes to the ground. Her final words echo through Arata's mind, a torment so intense that a raw, agonizing scream tears from his throat. Ryo pivots, his voice grim. Anyone bitten is already gone. In that exact moment, the monstrous boss barrels straight for him. He barely throws his arms up in time to absorb the brutal impact. Arata, however, is paralyzed, forced to witness the horrifying spectacle of Aoi's body twisting and corrupting. He can't understand it. The light has already vanished from her eyes. So why does the grotesque transformation rage on? But this is Arata. His mind is already firing on all cylinders, frantically searching for a loophole, any solution to halt this nightmare. In the middle of his desperate brainstorming, Aoi's body snaps upright, with the unnatural jerk of a puppet on strings. The girl he knew is gone, but his mind refuses to accept the monstrous reality standing before him, even as Ryo struggles for his life against the boss. Ryo roars at Arata, his voice strained. Wake up, that's not Aoi anymore, it's a magic beast, forget whatever you felt for her. Ryo pleads with him to finish it, warning that from this point, there's absolutely no turning back for a human. As if on cue, the thing that was once Aoi lunges, aiming a brutal punch right at Arata's face. He wants to fight back, but his heart won't let him. All he can do is leap backward, clumsily dodging the strike. I can't fight her, Arata yells in pure terror, prompting Ryo to abandon his fight with the boss. He intends to put Aoi down himself, but Arata throws himself in the way. No, she's my only comrade. Ryo is practically shaking with rage. Are you crazy? She'll kill you. You have to fight or you're dead. She's not human anymore, Ryo screams, but Arata just can't accept it. Their heated argument creates the perfect opening for the boss who strikes from behind. But Ryo's combat instincts are off the charts, and he yanks them both clear of the attack just in time. While Ryo re-engages the monster, Arata is just crumbling, whispering about how he can't bear to lose anyone ever again, his mind racing for a way out of this hell. And then it clicks. That new skill he got? Vassalization. It's a dark power used to revive the dead as a controllable subordinate. It's a twisted, morally bankrupt idea, but it might be his only option. He knows it wouldn't truly be her, but he rationalizes that at least some version of Aoi could remain by his side. With that, Arata shoves his hesitation aside and unleashes the forbidden skill. He refuses to lose someone precious again. A sinister purple aura immediately engulfs Aoi, flooding into her body. Moments later, a system notification declares the transformation complete. In a jaw-dropping turn, the new Aoi looks completely different, and she drops into a formal bow like a knight, pledging fealty to their master. Another notification flashes. The woman before him is now a half-demon named Chiharu Toyo, and she is his vassal. Arata cautiously steps toward her, calling out Aoi's name, asking if she's alright. He can see the skill worked, but her entire presence feels alien. The monster conversion was stopped, yes, but this person is no longer Aoi. Ryo's voice cuts through the air again. I told you she's not human. But Arata shoots back defiantly. I made her my vassal. Ryo is stunned, speechless by this revelation. A skill like that. Where could Arata have possibly obtained it? Meanwhile, Arata clings to a desperate hope that because it wasn't a full conversion, he might find a way to bring the real Aoi back one day. Just then, Aoi's expression twists into one of cold fury as she explodes into motion, rocketing toward the boss. She unleashes a vicious slash, but the boss catches her arm in its massive jaws. Incredibly, Aoi doesn't even flinch. The monster's corrupting power has no effect on her anymore. She immediately returns the favor by slamming her fist into the beast's throat. Seeing his chance, Arata finally joins the fray, launching himself at the monster, and with one epic slash, he cleaves the beast in half, watching it dissolve into dust. A system window pops up, the boss is defeated, and the dimensional rift will now close. When they make it back to the guild, Rei can only stare in utter disbelief. "That can't be Aoi," she whispers. She demands to know what happened to her. Ryo explains that they found Aoi on the very brink of turning into a magic beast. "The boss bit her," Arata adds, his voice heavy. "I had to use my vassalization skill, the beast we fought before. It had that ability, and I inherited it. I didn't want to do it, Rei, you have to believe me. But it was better than losing her completely," he argues. "By making her my vassal, I stopped the monster transformation. Now, she follows my orders." Rei is completely overwhelmed by this insane info dump. She nervously calls out, "Aoi." To everyone's absolute shock, the vassal looks up and responds. Rei, the three of them are completely stunned. Still, reeling from the shock of Aoi's body speaking, Rei confronts her demanding, "Who are you?" The entity inside reveals her name is Toyoi, a magic beast, but she quickly promises them Aoi's spirit is still alive, just locked away deep inside. She is a paradox, a monster who can somehow feel the intense weight of everyone's emotions. Hearing this, a tidal wave of relief crashes over Arata. Aoi is still in there, which means there's a legitimate shot they could actually get her back someday. Ryo, however, is radiating skepticism, questioning if Arata can truly be sure Toyoi won't just snap and start attacking people, even if he forbids it. With a blaze of conviction in his eyes, Arata vows that will never happen, declaring he's betting his entire life on it. Ryo presses him, asking how he plans to back that up when Toyoi could just lose control and go on a human-hunting rampage. The question stings Rei, but as much as it hurts, he knows Ryo has a valid point. Arata calmly turns to Toyoi and issues a simple test command: "Go play with the cat curled up in the corner." Without a second's thought, Toyoi's face lights up with pure glee as she pads over and begins gently petting the cat. Rei is absolutely floored by the sight. Instead of a monster, all she sees is Aoi. Even Ryo is stunned that a cat is perfectly calm in the presence of a magic beast. Ryo realizes this isn't just blind obedience to a command. It's living proof that Aoi's fundamental kindness is still there, which is the real reason she would never attack humans. Toyoi then scoops up the cat and walks toward Ryo, who immediately flinches. He stammers that he knows she's safe, he's just not comfortable yet. It clicks for Rei instantly. Ryo, the tough guy, is scared of cats. He desperately tries to deny it, but Arata and Toyoi just erupt in laughter at the dude acting all hard, while being terrified of a harmless little fluffball. Rei then asks Arata if he can watch over Toyoi, assuring him that she will personally handle any backlash from the association. Arata agrees, without hesitation, confirming he can stay with Toyoi. He knows that on some level, they're going to need Toyoi's incredible strength for the battles ahead, so staying on her good side is mission critical. Arata then looks at Toyoi with a serious expression, telling her that from now on he needs her to back him up in battle. Toyoi's eyes sparkle with excitement as she replies that as his vassal, he can place his absolute trust in her. Meanwhile, alarms are screaming inside the association's headquarters as they detect massive geomagnetic surges, erupting across multiple areas, a terrifying sign that a large-scale rift is imminent. Moments later, the report lands in front of Dojo, and he issues a code 0 to all guilds. Deep down, Dojo isn't shocked at all. He's been expecting the Great Rift's return, even if it took 17 long years to finally reappear. He glances at a portrait on his desk, showing a younger version of himself. The picture was taken with someone obviously dear to him, but their face has been completely blurred out. Over at the Navy Guild, Rei gets the news that Dojo just declared a code 0. The moment Rei and Ryo hear those words, an icy dread slithers down their spines. In the city, people are just going about their day when a colossal fissure violently rips open the sky above them, sending everyone into a state of shock. Those who were alive 17 years ago realize with horror that they are about to witness a repeat of the nightmare that once tore their world apart. As the rift expands, countless monsters pour out. Sheer panic floods the streets as citizens start running for their lives with the beasts in hot pursuit. However, slayers in the vicinity immediately mobilize to try and contain the unfolding disaster. They're horrified by the sheer volume of monsters gushing from the portal, but they stand their ground, knowing it's their duty to secure the area no matter what. Before they can even react, they find themselves completely swallowed by a horde of monsters. It's over. They're totally cooked, with no chance of sealing off the perimeter now. Suddenly, a massive inferno incinerates every single monster in a flash of fire. As the smoke clears, the two young slayers stare in awe as the legendary gold slayers walk toward them. A wave of pure relief hits them. The gold slayers arrived in the absolute nick of time. Meanwhile, the rift's deadly aura is already reaching the streets, warping some citizens and hideously twisting their forms. Rio barks an order for the other slayers to evacuate all civilians to a safe zone immediately. Once the order is given, Rio turns to Ray, his face grim. It's time for them to plunge into the fissure and obliterate whatever boss monster is orchestrating this invasion. Ray warns Rio to stay sharp so they don't have a repeat of what went down 17 years ago. Ray can't help but wonder just how massive the inside of this rift is going to be. Rio gives a solemn nod, acknowledging he's well aware of the danger. The higher-ups never shut up about the story from 17 years ago, a tale he grew sick of hearing. Elsewhere, Dojo and Xian are also preparing to enter the rift. Dojo tells Xian with grim finality that they absolutely cannot allow a repeat of what happened back then. Xian just smirks at him. She teases him that she understands perfectly, promising they're going to get in there and clean up this whole mess fast. The moment Takuto's been waiting for is finally here. He steels himself to plunge into the fissure. But just as he moves to enter, Arata and Toyoi appear on the scene. Arata shouts at Takuto that they're holding the line on the outside, explaining that it's a direct order from Ray. Before she departed, Ray had challenged Arata to prove himself not with words, but with action to fight like a true slayer. With no idea when they'd be back, Arata and Toyoi committed to Ray's orders, launching themselves at the monsters swarming the area. They became a whirlwind of blades cutting down beasts while pulling terrified citizens from harm's way. One rescued mother pats her crying son's head, whispering that she promised him the slayers would come for them. In that exact moment, winged magic beasts burst from the rift. Arata is completely stunned. He can't wrap his head around why an insane number of magic beasts are suddenly pouring out of that location. He realizes they're in deep trouble. Flying monsters have never been seen before. In a flash, one of the aerial monstrosities dive bombs toward the mother and son that Arata had just struggled to save. As the beast is about to connect, Arata activates his suit's power, bisecting it in midair. He then zips toward the mother and child, asking if they're all right. The woman confirms she's okay, thanking him profusely for his intervention. Arata glances at the sky, and his stomach drops. The flying monsters are absolutely everywhere. He knows it's going to be a catastrophe if they manage to scatter across different districts, leaving him scrambling to figure out his next move. Arata yells to Toyoi that the monsters aren't incredibly powerful, but their huge advantage is that they can't do a thing while the creatures own the sky and they're stuck on the ground. Before they can even react, the winged beasts begin to multiply like a horrifying swarm with more and more emerging from the rift. Arata immediately tells Toyoi they can't just stand by and do nothing, or the entire sector is going to get demolished. If nothing changes, Arata knows he has to eliminate the monsters as quickly as humanly possible. He fires off a barrage of soot projectiles at the creatures. He successfully downs a few, but because the swarm is moving so erratically, he realizes it's going to take a monumental effort just to keep them contained. Arata knows for a fact that other regions will be in grave danger if these flying monsters successfully break through their defense, which is why he must crush them while they are all still in one place. Right then, 3 other slayers arrive on the scene, their jaws dropping at the sight of this new breed of monster. The squad leader barks orders for those with defensive abilities to shield the civilians, while slayers with long-range attacks should provide support for Arata. Deep down, a fire ignites within Arata. He's ready to annihilate every last one of them, driven by the need to prevent his home from being reduced to ruins. At the same time, he's plagued by the fear that everything he's done so far is just not enough, which is why he has to find a strategy to slow them down. Arata comes to the conclusion that using his suit skill is his only way out. He focuses trying to find a way to unleash it, drawing on the countless times he's practiced this. That ingrained knowledge is the only thing that can possibly save him now. In that instant, Arata begins to emit a massive wave of soot from his hand that blankets the entire sky, engulfing all the monsters without a single one escaping. Once he's certain he has them all in his grasp, he hardens the soot, which instantly solidifies around the beasts. To his shock, his desperate gambit begins to work, but he realizes that using this much soot is burning through his MP at a terrifying rate, and if he fails to kill every monster in one go, he's completely finished. Arata then amplifies the mass of the soot to drag the immobilized monsters out of the sky, and it works perfectly. With the monsters now within striking distance, Toyoi explodes into action, beginning to cut them to pieces. With this strategy, Arata manages to clear out the monsters he snared in a single epic move. He notices that he can now wield his skills with greater ease than ever before. Arata decides to ride this wave of momentum and obliterate the rest of the monsters. He taps into his power again, but this time he's already pushing his limits, as he attempts to take them all down in one final attack. This time, Arata conjures a gigantic sword made of soot, and with the remaining monsters clustered together, he slices them all down at once, finally securing the area. The slayers behind Arata are left completely awestruck by what they just witnessed. The citizens, meanwhile, leap into the air with joy now that the beasts have finally been defeated. Arata is so drained he collapses onto his butt, but one of the slayers rushes over to praise him. He tells him that it was solely thanks to him that they were able to save the sector, and by the looks of it, there's no sign that the monsters are going to reappear in such large numbers. The slayer grabs Arata's hand and pulls him to his feet. Deep down, Arata is overcome with relief that he managed to hold the line, which means the rest of the mission is in the hands of the Gold Slayers. Arata finally grasps the true meaning of facing a large-scale rift, but he can't help but wonder why the initial pushback felt so small. At that moment, the slayer who had just praised him gets a call. Headquarters is on fire. Arata's blood runs cold when he hears the news. If HQ goes up in flames, the entire chain of command will collapse. At the heart of the central complex lies the Seiwa Guild, the command hub for the entire Earth Guild, the very nerve center that directs every single Slayer operation. This fortress houses the nationwide Slayer system, a database chronicling every magic rift ever recorded. It is from this epicenter that all missions are relayed to the guilds. Within its walls, you'll find the armory, the medical ward, the reward distribution center, state-of-the-art training facilities, and even containment cells for rogue slayers alongside a media control hub. Its reach extends to every corner of the nation, and if this headquarters were to fall, it would mean the complete collapse of Japan's defense grid against the relentless tide of magic beasts. Inside, a man named Kohaku-do, a silver-ranked slayer serving under Dojo, has taken charge. His voice cuts through the chaos, ordering the evacuation of all non-combatants to get them to safety. He commands the regular slayers to buddy up and maintain a tight formation, while the bronze ranks are tasked with defending the core facilities and reporting any developments on the fly. The silver-ranked slayers, meanwhile, are the vanguard tasked with the brutal subjugation of the magical beasts swarming the headquarters. With a voice filled with conviction, Kohaku reminds them that with the gold slayers deployed elsewhere, holding this line is all on them. Kohaku glances out the window, his eyes widening at the sight of countless flying monsters blanketing the sky. He can't wrap his head around why so many have appeared, out of thin air, when they're nowhere near a large-scale fissure. The chilling realization hits him: the magic beasts were waiting for this. They waited for Dojo and the other gold-ranked slayers to leave before launching their assault. He wonders if throwing up a defensive barrier around the rift was ever going to be enough. Peering into the distance, he sees their front line, buckling under the sheer weight of the monster horde. And as if things weren't bad enough, the slayers left to defend the base are all raiders, specialists in all-out assault, not fortified defense. Just then, a frantic report crackles in the infirmary is ablaze, which sends a shockwave through him. He can't believe the beasts have already penetrated that deep into their defenses. Without a moment's hesitation, he bolts toward the infirmary, yelling at the slayer next to him to start gathering intel on everything, anything that can give them a clear picture of this nightmare. As he sprints down the corridors, Kohaku is gripped by the fear that he isn't strong enough for the task. Dojo entrusted to him the responsibility of protecting the entire association. When he finally bursts into the infirmary, he's met with a scene of absolute devastation, swarming with magic beasts that have torn the place apart. One of them immediately launches a fireball straight at him, but he dives out of the way, narrowly dodging the blast. His voice laced with cold fury, Kohaku snarls that the beasts are not permitted to run rampant in his headquarters. He instantly assesses the situation. Fire attribute beasts are coordinating with wind attribute beasts, using the smoke and flames as the perfect cover. Since wind is his elemental weakness, Kohaku questions if his best move is to prioritize taking out the fire-type beast first. In that moment, Arata and Toyoi appear on the scene and taking it all in. Arata confirms dryly that the headquarters is, in fact, on fire. Even though this was the last place he wanted to be, he knows he's out of options now. Arata then looks directly at Kohaku, telling him he's going to extinguish the flames so Kohaku can focus on the monsters. Kohaku is immediately pissed off that some random slayer just showed up and started barking orders at him. But then he gets a better look, and realizes this is Arata, the infamous irregular who escaped. He can also feel the distinct aura of a magic beast rolling off of Toyoi. Arata pays Kohaku's protests no mind, and activates his suit, instantly quenching the inferno with a single powerful blast. Kohaku is left speechless, stunned that Arata put out the fire with just one attack. Okay, so even if Arata is an irregular, Kohaku decides he can use his help for now. Just as a monster makes a mad dash for Arata, Kohaku's power flares to life, and he instantly petrifies the creature with his unique ability. He scoffs at the frozen monster, smugly saying he just acquired another artifact for his personal collection. Kohaku then slams his palm on the floor, pulling a terrifying spear from the very earth, before charging the stone-like monster. He thrusts the spear deep into the creature, shattering it into a million pieces. Kohaku then informs Arata that he's officially on probation until the headquarters has been secured. Kohaku makes it crystal clear that their mission is to eradicate every last magic beast in this facility, and Arata simply agrees. On the inside, though, Arata is actually relieved to have the opportunity to fight alongside a true prodigy, the very same one who clinched the Seiwa Guild's #2 spot at such an incredibly young age. He's not sure if Kohaku can spam the petrification spell, but he can't deny how ridiculously powerful the skill is. A thought clicks in Arata's mind: by using his suit, he could probably harden the beasts and then seal them. Arata immediately puts his theory to the test, and when Kohaku witnesses it, he's completely floored to see Arata perfectly copy his technique, after only seeing it performed once. After they've cleared the room, Arata gives Kohaku a nod, telling him that the skill he used was seriously impressive. Kohaku quickly turns away to hide the blush, creeping up his face, claiming that the skill was nothing special, compared to what he's truly capable of. He then shifts gears, demanding to know why Arata is so recklessly burning through his skills. Calling his technique a complete train wreck, Kohaku warns him that fighting with such reckless abandon is just going to completely torch his MP. Not only that, but it leaves him totally defenseless. Kohaku scoffs, saying this is exactly why he's always gassed out. He doesn't even have the fundamentals down. Arata's mind is blown. He had no clue there was any actual skill involved. He's just been scrapping for his life, never giving it a second thought. Kohaku just smirks, telling him to at least try not to be dead weight for the team. But Arata is totally lost, questioning what they should even be trying to save first now that they're caught in this mess. Meanwhile, deep inside the headquarters' divine armory, Takatora is rummaging through weapons that are way above his pay grade. His eyes land on a gleaming golden sword, and a greedy thought sparks in his mind. He's taking it. With everything going to hell, he's decided he'll be the hero who saves the day, especially since the legendary Gold Slayers are MIA. The second, his fingers wrap around the divine sword's hilt, an absolutely insane surge of power floods his entire being. This jolt of energy convinces him he's already surpassed the 5 heavenly kings. He lets out a wild, unhinged scream, declaring himself the most powerful being alive. Back on the battlefield, Arata, Kohaku, and Toyoi are relentlessly cutting down monsters, swarming the headquarters. Kohaku is torn frantically, trying to decide what to prioritize and defend first. The command room, the storage area. After slicing through countless beasts, Arata can't help but wonder where the hell they're all pouring in from. He swears there wasn't a single magic beast in sight when they first got here. Kohaku totally agrees, muttering that they need answers, and fast. He announces he's going to check for any trace of the beast's origin point. Moving to an open space near the main building, he presses his palm flat against the ground, trying to read the energy signals. His face darkens. He confirms the entire area's energy is completely jacked up, like something major went down deep underground. Locking onto the source of the disturbance, Kohaku immediately bolts. He yells back at Arata to keep pace or get left in the dust. A few moments later, they burst into the headquarters' subterranean records room. And there, gaping in the center of the floor, is a massive, jagged hole, an obvious entry point for the monster invasion. The creatures had used this breach to sneak into the facility while everyone was distracted by the colossal demonic rift outside. Right on cue, a fresh wave of monsters scrambles out of the darkness, and Kohaku instantly brandishes his spear, leaping into the fray. A blinding flash erupts from his weapon as he slams it into the nearest creature. Arata offers to jump in, but as he starts to power up, Kohaku shouts at him not to force it. He tells him that as a real fighter now, he needs to regulate his breathing and create an empty space within himself. Focusing on letting the energy rise organically from his gut, Arata takes Kohaku's words to heart and concentrates. And just like that, Arata manifests a huge, menacing sword forged from pure soot, and immediately starts carving through the horde. Kohaku watches genuinely impressed, admitting that Arata has actually leveled up a bit. Internally, Kohaku acknowledges Arata's technique, and battle instincts are still trash, but he's adapting to the chaos. He also clocks that Toyoi is a total weirdo, but hey, he can't really complain. She's proving to be incredibly clutch right now. After they clear the room of monsters, Kohaku channels his energy to seal the tunnel shut. With the breach finally closed, Kohaku tells Arata it's time to go on a full-blown cleanup mission. But even with the main tunnel sealed, Arata has a nagging feeling they haven't plugged up all the leaks. Kohaku points out that since the monster numbers are thinning out here, it means most of the beasts that use this entrance have already spread out. That's why capping this tunnel was priority number 1. But just in case we're wrong, Arata says with a grin, I've already left some soot markers. His shadowy soot instantly spreads through the building's vents and cracks, and Arata tells Kohaku he's sensing a seriously powerful beast right above them. Arata insists they need to head upstairs immediately because the vibe he's getting is anything but natural. He pinpoints the location, telling them the highest concentration of demonic energy is in the open area directly above. Kohaku's eyes go wide with horror as he realizes what that place is. That's the training facility. They race to the location, and what they find is their worst nightmare confirmed: a second hidden rift pulsating right inside the headquarters itself. Kohaku is absolutely livid, realizing the chaos outside was a massive diversion that made them miss this. More beasts begin to crawl from the shimmering portal. The sight completely stuns Arata, who never saw this coming. Kohaku quickly deduces that the monsters were using the fires and the underground tunnel as a smokescreen. Fueled by pure rage, Kohaku charges headfirst into the new wave of creatures. Arata is right behind him as they battle to contain the breach. Kohaku knows their only real play is to shut down this rift, and do it now. But he's stuck. If he leaves his post to handle it, the entire association will be left vulnerable. On top of that, he can tell this rift is different from the usual ones. It's massive, easily big enough to spawn an army of high-level beasts. Kohaku desperately tries to figure out what his master Dojo would do. In that moment of doubt, Arata steps forward and says, "Let me go." Kohaku is floored by this declaration. Arata is already running on fumes, yet he's still ready to dive headfirst into the fire. Without a moment's pause, Kohaku finds himself wondering what kind of fire is fueling this guy before declaring that he's going in too. If Arata, a rogue slayer, is putting his neck on the line, there's no way he can just hang back and watch. Kohaku figures the main squad of slayers can handle any grunts that spill out of the building, as long as their strike team can obliterate the nest first. Seizing the moment, Arata hypes everyone up to breach the rift. He shouts that there's no way they're getting clapped by monsters of this level. With that, Kohaku takes the lead. He orders the others to get behind him as they plunge straight into the shimmering portal. On the other side, they materialize inside some kind of twisted throne room. Kohaku immediately says the place gives him the creeps. But Arata's eyes go wide. He spots a magic beast commanding things from the shadows. Kohaku snaps everyone to attention. He tells them they have to wrap this mission up fast and bounce, because he has responsibilities to uphold. As they push deeper into the chamber, the air grows heavy, the vibe feeling completely off. Meanwhile, the Gold Slayers are dealing with their own brand of chaos. A few tense moments later, Kohaku points out how sketchy it is that not a single monster has jumped them yet. Ever since they entered this freaky domain, it's been dead silent. Kohaku turns to Arata, asking him straight up what drives him to fight so hard. The question catches Arata completely off guard, and before he can even string a sentence together, Kohaku interrupts. Revealing that he fights for Dojo's sake, Kohaku explains that as long as Dojo is standing, the Slayers can withstand this war. He declares Dojo is their rock against the magic beasts, but then throws shade at Arata, saying he lacks any kind of refinement. Toyoi, of course, decides to stir the pot. She teases Arata, saying Kohaku basically just called him not his type. Kohaku instantly shuts it down, telling Toyoi she's twisting his words. Kohaku tells her to just watch Dojo in battle. He then starts gassing his master up, saying he wields his power like a mighty river. He continues explaining how Dojo's technique has zero wasted motion. To Kohaku, his mentor's fighting form is nothing short of pure art. He even claims that an ancient master painter would have immortalized the sight as a sacred masterpiece, if they ever witnessed it. Toyoi is visibly unimpressed with Kohaku's fanboying, but he just writes her off as a disrespectful kid. After finishing his epic praise of Dojo, he advises Arata to feel the current of power surging within him. Their path is blocked by a colossal door, and as it grinds open, they are confronted by a grotesque monster with multiple human heads grafted onto its hideous, terrifying body. And just then, a beam of light erupts from the beast's core and zaps Kohaku. In an instant, his world shatters, and he sees Dojo lying on the ground, his body brutally torn to pieces. A raw scream of agony escapes Kohaku as he stares at the mutilated form of his mentor, utterly destroyed. He has no idea he's trapped in a horrifying illusion. In reality, Arata is watching him from the outside, trying to figure out what's wrong with Kohaku, who just suddenly crumpled to the floor while staring at the beast. It clicks. For Arata, that laser was the monster's psychic attack. At that exact moment, Toyoi also screams, clutching her head in unbearable pain. Arata is still trying to process everything when another laser beam slams into him. Suddenly, Arata's deepest fears are dragged to the surface. The ghosts of everyone he failed to save materialize before him, their voices venomous as they blame him for letting them perish. Their phantom voices call him a failed slayer, whispering that he should have been the one to die. Arata collapses to his knees, broken. The emotional weight crushes him, growing heavier with each passing second. All the while, the monster revels in their torment. It feasts on the team's agony. But then, deep within Arata's despair, something clicks. He remembers he still has a fight to win. He's failed countless times before, but that doesn't matter now. Fueled by sheer force of will, Arata staggers back to his feet, his resolve hardened by his promise to bring Aoi back. He will not let what happened to his brother happen again. Clinging to that willpower and fierce determination, he tries to tap into that inner current of power, just as Kohaku had described. And in that moment, he connects with Aoi's magic. He's left reeling, wondering if the vassalization skill is what made this possible. The instant he realizes he can actually wield this power, Arata digs deeper, drawing out even more. The monster senses this shift. It sees Arata breaking free of its mental prison. It panics and unleashes a frantic energy blast. The attack detonates with a deafening roar, but when the smoke clears, Arata stands completely unharmed behind a shimmering shield he manifested using Aoi's power. Arata himself is in shock. He can't believe he actually managed to channel Aoi's defensive magic, which effortlessly repelled the entire attack. With the shield now protecting him from the monster's mental attacks, Arata finally has an opening to launch a counteroffensive. Kohaku, however, is still trapped deep within the illusion, utterly convinced that his master is truly dead. But then a new horror dawns on him. Arata is about to face that abomination all by himself. A wave of shame washes over him. Disgusted with his own weakness, he slams his forehead into the stone ground, the raw pain shattering the illusion and snapping him back to reality. He glares at the grotesque creature, vowing to end this for his mentor. In response, the monster unleashes a volley of searing energy beams directly at Arata, but every single blast gets effortlessly deflected by his shimmering shield. The beast roars in frustration, enraged that its onslaught is completely useless. Suddenly, a primal instinct screams a warning from behind him. He whips around to see a grotesque chunk of the monster has peeled itself away from the main body. This new clone lunges straight for his throat, but just as its claws are about to find their mark, Toyoi's voice cuts through the chaos, telling the beast it got sloppy by spawning clones so recklessly, which shattered its own illusion. The clone stalking Arata is instantly skewered by Toyoi's razor-sharp talons, and she looks like an absolute goddess of death as she does it. With Toyoi back in the game and ready for round 2, Arata whips his head around to find Kohaku. But he's already on his feet, radiating pure, unfiltered rage. He unleashes his ultimate technique, the Stone Gargantua, a colossal suit of armor that towers over the boss monster and its pathetic copies. With a single devastating punch, Kohaku obliterates 4 clones at once, unleashing a massive shockwave of raw power. The sheer force sends even Arata staggering back, and he finally gets a glimpse of Kohaku's true terrifying strength. Kohaku looks absolutely demonic, as if a more brutal personality has completely taken over. Out of nowhere, the main boss monster lunges for a sneak attack from behind, but Arata's reflexes fire off, and he dives clear just as a massive fist smashes the ground where he stood, shattering it into a crater. Arata seizes the opening, striking at the beast's exposed head. However, his blade just scrapes uselessly against its armored hide. Kohaku sees this and barks at Arata to focus up while simultaneously refining his magical energy. Arata is totally confused by what he means. But Kohaku knows that if the kid can't break past his current limits right here, right now, this room will become his tomb. Taking Kohaku's cryptic advice to heart, Arata closes his eyes, blocking out the chaos and concentrating all of his will. In that moment, Arata channels Aoi's power directly into his weapon, transforming his suit sword into the legendary Glittering Mist Sword. Wielding this new supercharged blade, Arata becomes a blur of motion, dashing toward the monster and slicing it clean in half in an attack that's over before it even begins. He stands there gasping for air and turns to his comrades. Toyoi's jaw is on the floor, utterly stunned, while Kohaku is giving him a look of immense pride like a father watching his son succeed. He gives Arata a nod, telling him he finally made the grade. The adrenaline fades, and Arata's legs give out, sending him collapsing to the floor as Toyoi rushes to his side to check on him. Kohaku, however, is piecing things together. He recognizes that Arata's power output matches those who have awakened a golden orb, which makes him seriously question what a kid with that kind of potential is doing playing the hero. Sometime later, they made it back to headquarters and mopped up the remaining monsters, finally securing the entire association building. With the HQ now safe, Kohaku knows their next major objective is the large-scale fissure. Meanwhile, over in the rift, Doju and Xion are deep in a massive forest hunting for the area boss. Predictably, Xion is already complaining about the filthy surroundings, whining about how her designer clothes are getting ruined. Doju just rolls his eyes at her, telling her that this is exactly what she gets for dressing like she's heading to a club instead of a kill zone. But Xion is completely unbothered. In fact, she channels her irritation, unleashing a massive energy blast that carves a perfectly convenient path through the dense woods. Doju can only sigh at her dramatic theatrics. His mind flashes back 17 years to a time when the barrier between their world and the magic rift had grown dangerously thin, stretched to the absolute breaking point. When it finally shattered, countless lives were extinguished as a tide of magic beasts poured through the breach. Doju remembers that they were too slow to react back then, and he's grimly determined not to let that same tragedy repeat itself this time. However, he's on edge because the dead silence in this rift is completely unnatural. Xion points out the obvious: the monsters are almost certainly setting up an ambush. He agrees, telling Xion to stay frosty and not let her guard down for a second. Moments later, they arrive at a colossal tree pulsing with a bizarre energy, and they know they've hit the jackpot. Xion lets out a sigh of relief, glad that they've found their target and can skip the tedious tracking part. Based on their readings, they figure the creatures perched in the branches are A-ranked threats, at the very least. Shion mutters about how she can't wait to wrap this up and go home. Sitting on the branches above are the false twins, Arum of the white wings, and Varuna of the black wings, and they look absolutely lethal. According to association regulations, they're certified A-rank beasts. The twins seem amused that Shion and Doju actually tracked them down, and they sneer, promising the two that this forest will be their grave. They start bragging about how they effortlessly wiped out the Silver Slayers, and then they ask Doju and Shion just how many seconds they think they can last before dying. Then the two of them unleash a blinding laser beam straight at the Slayers. Realizing these punks are seriously underestimating them, Doju and Shion get ready to fight back. A brilliant golden aura erupts from Doju's body, as he tells the twins that gold isn't just an extension of silver, and they're about to give them a live demonstration of that difference. Golden Slayers. A radiant suit of golden armor erupts around Doju's body, while Shion conjures a devastating sphere of pure energy. The twins' combined blast slams into Doju, but he just tanks it, not even flinching. Seeing their ultimate attack get shrugged off, the imposters begin to panic. Refusing to be utterly humiliated, they unleash another volley of laser beams, a desperate storm of light far more intense than before. But it's no use. Doju effortlessly deflects every single shot as Shion finally unleashes the monstrous blast she's been cooking up. The fake twins see the sheer scale of the attack barreling toward them, and know with absolute certainty that they are royally screwed. Doju isn't surprised in the slightest. He's always known that humans and beasts share the same fatal flaw. Both are prisoners of their own experience, which is precisely why they foolishly believed the Golden Slayers were a power they could comprehend. The might of the Golden Slayer defies all logic. It's an overwhelming force that completely shatters their limited scale of reasoning. The twins can only watch in abject horror as Shion's cataclysmic blast engulfs and completely vaporizes them, obliterating everything in its path. With the giant tree they were perched on, now reduced to ash, Shion turns to Doju and wonders aloud if the others have cleared their sectors yet. Meanwhile, Ryo and Rei are facing off against Ariel, the priest of vanity, and Balm, the war idol. The duo wipes out the monsters with zero difficulty. It was a total cakewalk, just like it was for Doju and Shion. At the same time, Takuto absolutely demolishes Lil and Voss, the twin phantoms of illusory sound. But Takuto is low-key disappointed. The one person he was actually itching to fight is nowhere to be found in the fissure. He'll just have to postpone their showdown for another day. Soon after Kohaku gets the call, Doju is heading back to headquarters. The news sends a jolt of pure excitement through him, and as word spreads to the other Slayers, the entire guild erupts in celebration. And just like that, the crisis caused by the large-scale magic rift was over. The association's official report later claimed damages were kept to a minimum. However, the magical beast's true objective remained a mystery. For a moment, everything seemed fine. Too fine. Until a new threat descends from the sky behind association headquarters. It's Takatora, and he's wielding a divine weapon. The weapon's corrupting power is already visible. One of his eyes glows a sinister red, and his right arm has twisted into something monstrous and bestial. Yet a sick, twisted smile is plastered on his face. He's completely drunk on his newfound power as he descends. He unleashes a torrent of fire on the surrounding buildings. Alarms start blaring across the city, signaling a potential catastrophe. Rei returns to the guild just in time to get the frantic report from her attendant, her eyes widening at the unbelievable chaos unfolding before her. With Takatora currently wreaking havoc on the association headquarters, the attendant tells Rei that all contact with the Seiwa Guild has been lost. A cold dread washes over Rei when she hears this. Arata and Aoi are at the headquarters right in the line of fire. Without a second of hesitation, she rockets toward the headquarters, praying that she can reach them in time. At Ground Zero, Takatora is going full-on supervillain, launching massive fireballs that tear through the streets and endanger countless civilians. Seeing how bad the situation is, Arata orders Toyoi to get the citizens to safety, while Kohaku's gaze locks onto Takatora's transformed hand. He's horrified to realize Takatora is holding a divine weapon. Kohaku shouts at the maniac, telling him that a person doesn't choose a divine weapon. It's the other way around. The weapon chooses its owner. These artifacts possess a will of their very own. They select their wielder. Kohaku is totally baffled as to how Takatora could have possibly obtained one. The barrier around the armory should have been unbreakable for someone at his level. Just then, Takatora lets out a booming, insane laugh. He bellows that he is the strongest, but his boast is cut short by a piercing scream of pain as a dark shadow erupts from his body. The shadow creature lunges at Arata, who manages to block the vicious attack with his shield just in the nick of time. Arata clears his mind of all distractions, knowing he has a crowd of terrified civilians to protect. With a single precise strike, he cleaves the shadow in half. Arata is prepared to shatter his own limits as a slayer to end this threat. At the same time, Kohaku and Toyoi engage Takatora head-on, determined to protect the guild and its people. But moments later, Arata realizes he's already at his breaking point. He's burned through way too much power. Sensing his opponent's sudden weakness, Takatora closes in for the kill, unleashing a devastating blow. Arata knows his shield can't possibly stop it. He makes a split-second choice spinning around to shield the kids and civilians from the blast with his own body. He manages to reinforce his body with his shield's remaining energy, but the impact is still catastrophic. Arata grits his teeth fighting back, a scream of pure agony. His body is covered in severe burns. He's completely out of magic power, and a crushing wave of pain crashes over him. Nearby Toyoi is giving her absolute all, desperately trying to protect the civilians. At the same time, Kohaku is barely holding his own against the monsters fighting tooth and nail, just to live up to his reputation as the Seiwa Guild's #2. Just then, Rei streaks onto the scene. A relieved smile breaks across her face when she sees that the trio is against all odds still standing. She zips over to their position, only to find the trio completely and utterly spent. Once she confirms everyone got out safely, a cold rage takes over as she tells them to fall back and leave this to her, while Takatora continues his destructive rampage. Out of nowhere, a massive energy blast slams into him, launching him across the horizon. The look on Rei's face is pure, unfiltered fury. She promises Takatora that for what he's done, mercy is officially off the table. Rei is reeling. He didn't just steal a divine weapon, he threw away his humanity. In a panic, Takatora fires a desperate blast of magic at Rei, but she just walks right through it, the attack dissolving against her power as she vows to beat him into oblivion. A colossal wave of energy explodes from Rei's body, transforming her appearance into something far from the person they know. As they're retreating to headquarters, Doju drops a bombshell on Shion. Rei is the Golden Slayer with the most insane firepower, leaving Shion absolutely floored. She always figured that title belonged to Doju. He clarifies that while he might be stronger in general, the second Rei fights solo. It's a completely different league. Shion is confused by the solo comment, so he breaks it down for her. As long as Rei doesn't have to hold back to protect her allies, her power dwarfs every other Golden Slayer. Doju explains that Rei's magic possesses the volatile properties of both water and lightning. It's an incredibly dangerous combination. This forces her to constantly throttle her own power when fighting with a team. Because of it, Rei was branded a heretic, forcing her down a harsh and lonely path. It turns out she's the original irregular. Back on the battlefield, Kohaku's eyes flutter open, and as his vision clears, he sees the epic showdown between Takatora and Rei tearing up the sky. It doesn't take long for Rei to sense that he's awake. A quiet sigh of relief escapes her. She's actually impressed by how well Kohaku is adapting to her energy, revealing that she's been channeling a portion of her own power into the trio this whole time. Kohaku immediately wants to jump back in and help her fight Takatora, but she shuts him down, urging him to stay back. He starts to argue, but Rei's glare stops him cold. She makes it crystal clear that this is an order, not a request. Kohaku finally concedes, and Rei instructs him to get the other two to safety. Her job now is to restrain the out-of-control Takatora. Kohaku obeys, grabbing his two comrades and sprinting away from the war zone. Once they're a safe distance away, Kohaku creates a healing spring for his teammates so they can start restoring their magical reserves. Meanwhile, Rei is furious with herself. The guild was placed in her care, but she failed to keep Takatora from going off the deep end. And now he's become this thing. She's livid at this outcome and decides she should have done everything herself from the very start. Enraged that Rei is tossing him around like a rag doll, Takatora bellows with absolute fury, unleashing a torrential storm of ice swords straight at Rei. Model.